For just a moment, we want to welcome you here. My name is Sam Bradley. I'm the pastor here at Heritage Baptist Church. We're thankful to have Rick and Brad and the rest of the team here, and looking forward to what's going to happen tonight, and excited that you're here. I want to open us up in a word of prayer. Before I do that, let me just give you a little heads up of how to get around this place. Right out these back doors, bathrooms. Ladies on this side, guys on this side. If you go down either of these two hallways, there's another hall, men's and women's restrooms there as well. All right, so that should help you. Water fountain down the hallway as well. Make yourselves at home, and I hope you're ready for a great evening. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity to be together tonight. We thank you for Rick, the Green family, Brad, Lord, just a lot of people behind the scenes that are working to help put all of this together and to see this all forward. And Lord, we're just thankful to even be here together tonight to enjoy this time, not just of entertainment, but of an opportunity to maybe gear our hearts into action and standing up for what we truly believe. And Father, in it all, we pray to, as well, foremost, promote your word and Lord, just you in general. And so we just ask that you'll guide this evening, that you'll be with all that'll be up here taking care of the night for us, and we ask it all in Christ's name. Amen. At this time, I'm going to welcome Kathy with True Texas Project. She's got a few words for you.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out. My name is Kathy, and I lead the True Texas Project in Ellis County. We meet the third Thursday of the month at the Bluebonnet Barbecue, and you are all welcome to come. And I am just honored and so pleased to be able to introduce at this point Mr. Rick Green. The Bluebonnet Barbecue in Ennis.
And y'all normally meet on this night? Or
The third Thursday, yes, 6:30 p.m.
So tonight is not just about laughing and learning and not just talking about stuff. We got to take action. And locally, True Texas is how to get plugged in.
Yes, we will teach you how to hold your officials, elected officials, accountable, from the school board to the county judges. Come and learn how to hold them accountable.
You know, you're hearing it everywhere. It's around us at a depth and velocity like we've never seen in our lifetime. It's literally taking people down a spiral of destruction, and it's what we call deception. Just take a look around. Look at the young people in your life. Look at the people all around you where deception is after them with a vengeance. You know, we have a responsibility as parents, grandparents, pastors, educators, mentors, and coaches. We can feel the urgency now more than ever. It's an urgency to inoculate this next generation against those same old ideas that have led to bondage throughout the course of history every time they've been tried. And we got to ask ourselves, do our sons and daughters know how to detect the lies in the culture? Do they know how to apply timeless, life-giving standards of truth rooted in the gospel to the problems of today? Are they ready to step out in courage when it's their turn, their chance to influence and lead a generation away from bad ideas with dangerous consequences? The real question is, has their education prepared them for this reality? Look, if you're between the ages of 16 and 25 and you're within the sound of my voice, this message is for you. No matter your personality, what your passions are, or the station of life or career you find yourselves in, the fight has come to you. The preparation you need does not happen by accident. It takes purposeful sharpening, role play, and intentionality to train for battle. And that's where Patriot Academy comes in. It's not a summer camp, it's a boot camp. Patriot Academies take place in state capitals across the nation throughout the summer, and we teach you essential communication skills and how to assess the ideas around you, but through a lens we call the LIFT principles. That's limited government, individual liberties, the free enterprise market system that rejects dangerous ideas like socialism and communism, and then lastly, it's timeless principles of truth. Our 3-day boot camp is just the beginning of a lifelong journey of learning on how to influence and take action to advance freedom no matter where God leads you. Because the connections you'll make, you're going to have full access to a network of leaders who stand ready to engage the culture and stand with courage with you. Make the decision today. Be the influencer that God has destined you to be. Be that one person who's equipped, strategically placed, and takes action.
So welcome to the fire.
Am I the only one here tonight, shaking my head and thinking something ain't right? Is it just me? Am I losing my mind? Am I standing on the edge of the end of time? Am I the only one? Oh, tell me I'm not. Who thinks they're taking all the good we got and turning it back? Well, hey, what do you know? I think I'm turning into my old man. Am I the only one who's willing to bleed or take a bullet for being free? And screaming, what the heck am my TV for telling me? Oh, are you telling me that I'm the only one who's willing to fight for my love of the red and white and the blue? 'Cause it's burning on the ground, another statue's coming down in a town near you. Watching the threads of old glory come undone. Am I the only one who's not brainwashed, making my way through the land of the lost, who sees it as it is and worries about his kids, so we'll try to defend all that the founders did? Am I the only one? Can't take no more screaming, if you don't like it, well, there's the door. And this ain't the freedom we were fighting for. It was something more, yeah, it was something more. Am I the only one who's willing to fight for my love of the red and white and the blue? 'Cause it's burning on the ground, another statue's coming down in a town near you. Watching the threads of old glory come undone. Am I the only one? I can't be the only one. Am I the only one who quits singing along every time they play a Springsteen song? Am I the only one still sitting here, holding on, holding back my tears for the ones who paid with the lives they gave? God bless the USA. 'Cause I'm not the only one who's willing to bleed, would take a bullet for being free. You're screaming, what the heck, you're my TV for telling me you're not the only one who's willing to fight for our love of the red and white and the blue. 'Cause it's burning on the ground, another statue's coming down in a town near you, and we're watching the threads of old glory come undone. We're watching the threads of old glory come undone. But I'm not the only one, and you're not the only one, and we're not the only ones. You're not the only one.
I love that song because it reminds us, first of all, it reminds you that you are not the only one. But then it reminds all of us in this room tonight that we're not alone. We're also going to be reminded tonight that the principles of liberty are still alive and well, and they work every single time that they're tried. And lastly, we're going to learn that each and every one of us in this room, there's something we can do to restore those principles of liberty. That's right, you can be a part of the solution. I don't care if you're 8 or 80 or somewhere in between, every single one of us, you can be the catalyst for a restoration of biblical values and constitutional principles right there in your community. I want to thank the True Texas Project for hosting us tonight, and I want to challenge you to meet them in the foyer tonight and get signed up and be a part of the local organization right here in your community, because that's how we're going to save America. We're going to have a great time tonight. Buckle up, put your seats and trays in their upright positions. No silly masks needed for this flight, because you're going to be too busy laughing and learning as every one of us are reminded just how blessed we are to be a part of the American story.
400 years ago, 102 courageous men, women, and children sailed 2,750 stormy miles in search of freedom. Freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, and a free form of government made up of just and equal laws, constitutions, and offices. This experiment in freedom would eventually birth the greatest nation in the history of the world, a nation designed to protect the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and...
How could they possibly have known that after all these years things would get so bad, so horrifying, so out of control, that the only shot God had to restore America was to find a comedian? So go ahead and clap, because the genius is coming down the aisle. Let's hear it. What? Excited to be here with you guys. This is what I've been waiting for, because let's face it, I don't know if anybody paid attention, don't know if anybody noticed, but things have gone a little wacky the last couple of years. Anybody noticed the wheels were coming off, things got a little out of control? So I just thought it'd be exciting for us to get together throughout areas of Texas and find out that things aren't over yet. Things are, matter of fact, a miracle is taking place right now. Don't ask me how, but somehow human beings are able to sit next to each other. Yeah. And even though they're not wearing a 50-cent surgical mask, Nobody's accusing you of murder. And that's what I think is so wonderful. But if somebody snuck in accidentally and are still living by anxiety and fear and paranoia, let's just get this out of the way, shall we? What am I saying? What am I saying? If you didn't get it, you got it now. That's what I'm saying. Because that's what we learned. That's what we learned for 2 dang years. We Americans, in the most technologically advanced country in human history, were told things that never added up because they weren't true. And I was told this. People with PhDs said to me that I have the #1 symptom of coronavirus. And you know what they told us the #1 symptom of coronavirus was? No symptoms. This is what passes for medical technology now. It's changing everything. All your doctor's visits are going to be all completely unique. How you feeling? Feeling great. Oh, that's too bad. I'm afraid you'll have to get your affairs in order. You see, it used to be good when you felt good, but not now. Not now. Things have gone sideways. Things have gone weird and odd and out of control. And listen to me. I'm just being honest. I'm not a medical professional, not a professional. So we got to learn from what's just taken place. If you want to remain free, because we're already at a precipice, but if you want a shot at freedom, you got to remember what just took place so it never happens again. And here's a first, one woman with courage. A courageous woman alone. See why she has to sit alone? Because she's courageous. All these other people are like, maybe she'll start clapping. I'm way over here. But she said, I'll do it alone. What happened to all these people, too, by the way? It's like in case the Supreme Court shows up, we got a seat just for them. Yes, be that way because, well, listen, we need to learn what happened so we can take that wisdom and apply it to the future. And I'm not a pro, but I'm just saying, maybe, just throwing it out here, not a professional, but maybe the next time a virus pops through that has a 99.8% survival rate, maybe we shouldn't shut down Earth. Just throwing it out. Just throwing it out. Just throwing it out there. And listen, I'm honest. I'm being honest with you. Listen, I'm just a comedian, just an American citizen, right? Just a patriot, but don't have a PhD. And we need to learn from that. We need to learn from what we learned. And one of the things we learned through the corona was that the experts aren't. I don't think there's one around. There's not one around. We need to learn that everybody had their own expert to give them what they wanted to hear so they could live their lives. Now listen to me. We need to remember who these people were and never forget it. Because these are American citizens that took it upon themselves to actually try to decide they could rule you, control you, and master over you. So we need to remember that. And listen, again, I'm not a professor. I'm no Fauci. How did he get that job? I did not know you could pay somebody that much money to be that wrong that many times and not at least be a weatherman. I didn't know you could pull that one off. That guy's amazing. And why not? You gave him power. Whatever he told you to do, people did it. Put on a mask. Okay. Oh, put on 2 masks. Okay. Oh, put on 3 masks. Okay. Put on a face shield. Put on a welder's mask. Put on a suit of armor. Laminate your lungs. People did everything. Couldn't believe it. So we need to remember who this was and use that name as a reminder of what tyranny looks like. So from this day forward, I'm making a proposal that we add a name to the nomenclature of Americana. So from this day forward, whenever somebody thinks they're superior to you, gives you information and directives that are ridiculous but act as though they're smarter than you, and it's always wrong, we're going to say they Fauci'd that up. Just my little tribute. my little tribute to Mr. Fauci. Because we need to always remember what happened. And you know, it's funny too, because some people, when you just bring up these ideas, will get upset with you. Will get upset with you. Well, listen, I know somebody that lost a loved one, and you're being insensitive, and you're making fun of the dead people. I'm not making fun of dead people, and I wouldn't make. If you lost somebody, I'm sorry for you. I don't want somebody to lose a loved one, but I'm not making fun of dead people. I'm making fun of people that aren't dead, who lived like dead people for the last 2 years. Them I'm making fun of. Those lunatics need to get their names readjusted. And by the way, just out of irony, think about that. If I was making fun of dead people, they'd be the only ones that didn't care. I think maybe we shouldn't have to worry about hurting the feelings of people that don't have feelings. Just throwing it out. What do I know? I'm no Fauci. But this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Remembering what it was to be an American, what it was to be an American, what it was to fight the good fight, what it was to take a risk, what it was to realize that sometimes things are going to be rough and you're going to have to forge through it or you're not going to get anywhere. I couldn't stand it when they began to patronize me by giving me rights to go into a restaurant. They gave you the permission to go back into a restaurant like we should be excited about that. Did you see what happened when they took the masks off the airplanes? And they have all those videos of people applauding. They shouldn't be applauding because they should have never had them on in the first place. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I don't know. I didn't wear them from day one, not because I don't care about people, but it used to be if people were severely sick or in trouble, they isolated themselves. That's the wise thing to do, and I would protect them. If somebody was sick, I wouldn't go in there without a mask because they're sick. But I'm not going to change me. That's absurd. When I walked, I got a tape of me walking through Chicago airport without a mask in 2020, just walking there going, yep, this is what freedom is supposed to look like. Behind me was all these masked people. Yeah, we do whatever the state beckons. And I'm just sitting here going, I don't know what's happened to America, but I'm all alone. It was ridiculous. I felt like the only guy wearing a bathing suit at a nude beach. I'm telling you right now, it was odd. It still works. You feel out of place, Pastor. Pastor's taking notes. Do nude beach material. The kids love it. Okay. What am I saying? What I'm saying is I have to live by truth. I'm a Christ follower. That means I live by truth and truth only. I will not succumb to a lie. I will not. And in that lie, it breaches my freedom and free agency God gives me as a human and as a Christ follower. But secondly, it breaches my First Amendment right as an American to have free speech, free thoughts, free ideas, free conscience, to live my life as I see fit if I'm not hurting others. And no, I'm not hurting you if I don't have symptoms. Crying out loud, I can't stand the lies. You'd walk into a restaurant and it was so over the top. As soon as you came in, get a mask on! You're killing everybody! People are just dropping like flies the moment you walked in! Get your mask on! As soon as you sat down, take it off. What? What? Put it on. Take it off. This is ridiculous. This is what they say. You're safe at this point. Do you understand what they're getting at? Do you see what's happening? Apparently, we could have kept the economy open if we had just remained seated. I didn't know that. Didn't realize that was magic. Didn't realize that chairs suddenly became a four-legged vaccine. I didn't understand that. I didn't know that the miracle we were looking for was on chairs all along. We didn't need Pfizer. We needed IKEA. That's all we needed. That's all we needed. Oh, my gosh. It was so ridiculous. You put your mask on, take it off. And other people would freak out. Aren't you scared, Dad? Aren't you scared without your mask? Not at this altitude. Up here, I'm scared to death, but down here, I feel like a new man. We were frightened and terrified and held hostage to a virus so stupid it couldn't find you when you sat down. Could have been saying, yeah, but how would we kept going? Wheelchairs, that's what we should have done. We could have kept going all day long. I'm going fishing, baby. No mask for me, I'm sitting down. What has happened to America? It's ridiculous. We have to return to that freedom. We have to return to that liberty. We have to return to that openness. Be respectful of your neighbor, yes. Be respectful of those who are weaker brothers, yes. Be respectful of those who need help, yes. You got to be respectful of them, but keep in mind, the Bible says when you give away your freedoms for the sake of these other folks, you are giving them to a weaker brother. A milk drinker. Keep in mind, you have to succumb to their immaturity, to their childishness. I don't want to be ruled by children. I've had enough of that in the last year and a half on this administration. I didn't pick anybody out by name. I have to be careful. Why do I say that? Because I'm afraid of what I'm going to say? No. Because I censor myself? No, I do not. But I have a deep dilemma. I'm a Christian. I'm held to a standard unlike anybody else. I am forbidden to hate people. Sucks. You don't think I want to hate people? Of course I do. But I'm forbidden. But I'm commanded to hate ideas that are not God's. And ideas attached to people. I can't help that. I can't help that ideas attached to people. I can't help that one party happens to care about pro-life, or at least have latched onto that to give them a sense of virtue. If I've learned anything in 2 years, both parties corrupt. Both. We're being destroyed by people who were elected to listen to us. And they think they were elected to rule us. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but you better be. By the end of the night, you will be. Look around. You think you see a bunch of folks just hanging out? Nope. You know what you're looking at? The government of the United States of America. We the people. It's all about a reinterpretation of words. Whoever controls the words of a country controls the people, because the words is the dissemination of information. Jesus Christ said he was the Word. Thus, word has power. Word created the universe. You need to understand your words and not let them be co-opted by those who want to redefine truth based on what they want to get, which is always power, which is always ego, which is always original sin. I'll prove it to you. I'll prove it to you. Right now, if you look around, 2 years ago, this would have been called a great crowd. Now it's called a super spreader. And it is a super spreader unless you're spreading while burning down buildings and looting. Then it's a peaceful protest. And it is a peaceful protest unless you're protesting a presidential election. Then it's an insurrection. And it is an insurrection unless you're insurrecting over climate change. Then you're just exercising your First Amendment right. And you are exercising your First Amendment right. Unless you do it at a school board meeting, then it is domestic terrorism. And it is domestic terrorism, unless the domestic terrorist is the CDC or the FBI. Then it's defending freedom. Notice, different behavior, same words. Reconstructed, redesigned to destroy, to control. Folks, be aware. Be aware. Be aware what's happening to your nation. Care about it. Fight for it. We need to remember that we have a First Amendment, and that First Amendment was designed for free speech. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or forbidding the free exercise thereof. Anytime you have heard in your entire life, growing up in this country, that somehow separation of church and state meant that the government never wanted anything to do with religious elements within the governmental process, you've been lied to. Matter of fact, the First Amendment says, Congress! First thing you have to start about when anybody says separation of church and state, is Congress involved? No, then it has nothing to do with it. Shall make no law Law. Law's the key. Anybody ever seen a congressional law that said you can't have a nativity scene at the park? Never. Ever seen a congressional law that said you can't pray at school? Never. Ever seen a congressional law that stated that you have to have a Christmas program at school that has a hymn in it? Never. Never. If you want to have Jesus Town with taxpayer dollars, you can, as long as it's not demanded by law. If it's the culture of the community, you can do that. That's how it was originally intended. That's why we have to go back to the original intent of the Constitution, because that's your freedoms, that's your rights given you by God. Why is it pathetic? Because a comedian shouldn't be teaching you these things. How bad is thing? How scraping of the barrel has it gotten? That God said, do we have any politician? No. How about some clergy? No. All right, is Steiner available? We need to remember who we are. We need to remember what we are. But you guys are here, so I'm just proud of that. You look good. You look good. You look free. And you know what? Even if you didn't look good, I'd lie. Why? Because that's what we're taught now. The new truth in America is lies. Lies about who you are, what you think you are, what you believe, what you don't believe. Lie about it as long as you feel good. That is institutionalized narcissism. We have a sociopath concept running our nation now. And we got a president. I've never in my life told somebody who to vote for as a Christian. I don't think it's my place. I say, look at the ideas, because that's what we're voting for, those who represent my ideas. But this is the first time in my life I have ever seen a president that every time he speaks, Alzheimer's patients are going, what is he talking about? So that's where we're at in America. That's where we've gotten. That's where we are headed. That's where we are at. We're at the cliff. We're hanging on by a thread. Okay? So here's our key. Do we continue as is and think that it's going to magically readjust? Or do we decide finally to say enough is enough and we rise up and create a militia of the mind? To defend ourselves. Once again, the woman leads the way. Listen, this country is here because people were willing to go to war. I don't want to go to war. I don't want to shoot any Americans. I want to reason with them. That's difficult to do now because reason is now called racist in Americana. You think I'm kidding? That's part of CRT. But nevertheless, here we are. So here's what I want to leave you with this segment. I will come back later so you can save your prayers. But what I want you to have is this: a knowledge that if you understand your rights, which are God-breathed, said the founders, enshrined in the Constitution so that it would always be there available for everybody to know what the marching orders are, given to us in the Declaration that was basically the creed that launched America. We, the people, are the government, and we find these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. Now notice that we're now told that we're the racist, horrific country that had slaves, and they did. They said, well, it didn't include slaves when they said all men are created equal. Then why didn't they say that? They had all the control in the world. Why didn't they say God created some folks equal? They could have. Instead, they used words that guaranteed they were going to have to end slavery. Yep. Oh, and by the way, nobody had ended slavery in the whole world at that point. Oh, and by the way, slavery is happening today. That's right. Not here. That's where we're at. We're living by lies. And if you do, you'll die. Or you can rise up. Yeah. Or you can rise up. So let me end with this. I do not worship the United States of America. I worship God Almighty. But I am grateful for the United States because it is by far the greatest nation the world has ever seen. Period. All right. So, if you are ready to fight in the militia of the mind, to win the battle of ideas and thoughts, and prepared to do whatever necessary to resist tyranny, we've got just the program for you. And I want to bring up someone who's very special to me, a very good friend, a partner, and an expert on the Constitution, and just to make it even more credible, a fellow Texan. So I want you to leave this place unapologetic about your desire and your love for this great nation. So yes, feel free to embrace and be grateful for the red, white, and blue, but be even more grateful that tonight we're going to throw in a dash of green. See you later.
Rick Green coming to you live from the Lone Star State of Texas, a beacon of hope and freedom to liberty lovers around the world. Today I'm thinking about why do we do what we do? Because everywhere we go as a family, when we're traveling and speaking, someone comes up to us and asks, where's the hope? Is it over for America? They genuinely feel like the stars and stripes are fading. I felt that. But when I look at my family, whether it's my son Trey and his drive to exceed expectations, or Reagan and his love for serving and teaching other people, Cameron and her determination to outperform her brothers in everything she does, or my little stagehound Rhett and his boundless enthusiasm, through their eyes, I see a vibrant nation when my children stand in the birthplace of the Constitution, or on battlefields where patriots gave their lives. I can see in them a rekindled flame of the American spirit. The future of my children's country is bright because it's built on the foundation of an incredible providential history. A history of patriots and pastors, entrepreneurs and freedom fighters, mothers, fathers, families like yours and mine, who chose to live like their nation depended on it. And it still does. So when people ask us, where is the hope? We tell them, it's in you. Each of us, every individual, every family, has a duty to fight for freedom and add our voice, our color, to the American dream. For our family, it's red, white, and blue, and a little bit of green.
Well, good evening. Welcome to the Super Spreader of Liberty. That's what we're spreading all over the state of Texas through this Comedy and Constitution tour. Thank you to Brad Stein for traveling with us, coming all the way from Nashville, Tennessee. We'll save Texas once again, just as they as they fought for us even at the Alamo. Special thanks to True Texas for hosting us again all over the state. We've been with so many different True Texas groups. It's been so encouraging to see crowd after crowd and community after community all over this state. So Kathy, thank you for what y'all are doing and continue to do in all of these communities across the state. Be sure you sign up with them. So part of what we really want you to do tonight is walk out those doors not just feeling good, not having heard some great stories or been able to laugh, but walk out honestly with a little bit of a burden on your shoulders. Because we want you to realize by the end of this evening that if America is to be saved, it's up to you. The fate of the free world depends on you. No pressure. Lots of pressure, actually. So we really do. We want you to leave ready to take action steps. And one of the most important things you can do is join True Texas and help them on the local level. I am honored tonight to actually tell you my mama's in the house. Would y'all please welcome my mom, Pat, Marjorie Patricia Green, and a whole passel of her friends with her. So it's good to be in Mama's backyard, and just great to have so many patriots come out with us. I want to talk a little bit about how we get to the things that we actually want. In other words, everybody in this room would say you want freedom. Everybody in this room would say, I want to live the blessings of liberty for my family. The question is, how do we get to those things? That's the output side of the equation. What do we got to put on the input side of the equation to have freedom and liberty? And so that's what tonight's really all about, is for us to go a little bit deeper into this concept of being a good citizen and producing liberty for our children and grandchildren and future great-grandchildren even. I mean, this is about the future generations. In fact, the things we're going to ask you to do by the end of the night tonight, we're literally going to be asking you to plant trees under which you may not enjoy the shade. In other words, we may not be here to benefit from the things that we're fighting for right now. I used to run around the country asking people, what's your freedom worth? I realized that's the wrong question. The right question is, what's your child's freedom worth? What's your grandchild's freedom worth? That's what posterity is. That's what it's all about. And so tonight we're really going to think about how do we get to the blessings of liberty. And to do that, we're going to go back in time and get some advice from a lot of folks from the past. That guy there is George Mason. Now, if you're not familiar with George Mason, he's one of the 55 men to frame the Constitution. Now, only 39 ended up signing, which means some of them actually left the convention early. About halfway through, 5 weeks in or so, they were fighting over everything. Big state, small state, slavery, ratification. I mean, they just couldn't agree. Some of them gave up, said, I'm out of here. It's never going to happen. The rest of them stuck around, but some of the ones that stuck around to the very end did not sign, including George Mason. Now, he influenced the document greatly. In fact, it is because of George Mason that we have a way to overrule the federal government. He was the one on September 15th that stood up and said, whoa, 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 we've got a problem here. We've created a federal government and a constitution that loans certain powers to the federal government, but if they ever add power to themselves without coming back to we the people and asking us, the only way for that power to be given back to the people and for them to get back inside the box we designed for them is if they choose to do it on their own. He said, does anybody in this room, said to the other delegates, anybody ever think of a time in history when anybody ever gave power back? Never. It's never happened, right? Well, maybe George Washington, when he actually resigned as general, could have been king. And actually King George heard about that. He said, if he really did that, he must be the greatest man that ever lived. And then he resigned again after being president for 2 terms. So maybe the only guy in history. But they knew the nature of man is to grab power and not give it back. So George Mason says, we got a problem here. If this federal government expands beyond its jurisdiction, it's never going to put itself back in the box. We need to be able to do that from outside of the federal government. The states have to be able to do that. So he's the one that proposed that Article 5 in the Constitution would allow for the states to overrule the federal government through the amendment process without the feds involved at all. We've never used it. It is the most important tool in the Constitution. I'm a believer that we will not save America without using that tool that the Founding Fathers gave us. It is time to overrule the federal government. So conventionofstates.com is the website I want to encourage you to visit. There's a table over here where you can learn more and be a part of that. Yes, ma'am, I like that. You clap all the time. Would you come sit right here on a stool and cue everybody when it's time to clap? Exactly right. No, it's a wonderful movement. It's growing like crazy. We need 34 states to call for it. 19 have called for it so far. 4 of those in just the last few weeks. I mean, we got momentum growing right now. I think one of the benefits of having government get way outside its lane and do health care, which it had no business doing. The federal government has 0 authority in health care. 0. Should have never been involved in this whole COVID thing at all. We bought into this thing where we go to, we think asking the congressman to solve our problems is the way we're supposed to do this. And in 1918 when Spanish flu happened, it was 25 times more deadly than COVID. 25 times. Not twice as deadly, not 5 times as deadly, not even 10 times. 25 times as deadly. Kids were getting in the morning dead by midnight. It was awful. That's why when they started off calling this the novel coronavirus, as if we've never faced anything like this before, I knew we were in for a scam before it was over. Not that the virus is a scam. I mean, my dad nearly died from it. We know people that have died from it. We know it's a real virus. But the government response became a scam. And the reason I say that is because I know history. And when you go back to 1918 when Spanish flu happened, 25 times as bad as this, and yet we cannot find a single speech or a writing where the President of the United States even uttered the words Spanish flu. Or any other phrase to describe the virus. Why? Even though he got it. Why? Because the federal government had no role at all It was a state and local issue only. And we messed up so bad over the last 2 years because we let the federal government get outside of its boundaries and try to drive this whole thing. So that's a bit of a tangent. I wasn't even supposed to talk about that tonight. George Mason, I don't know how I got off on that, but the way to get to fix all of that is a convention of states. But let's go back to George Mason. Now, George did contribute a lot of good things, right, including the Constitution, including a lot of other things. In fact, the Bill of Rights is kind of credited to him because of the Virginia Declaration of Rights, which actually is what our Bill of Rights was based upon. But he also contributed some bad things to America. And you just got to be honest. I mean, I always do the good, the bad, and the ugly. I don't run from the ugly or the bad. I certainly emphasize the good, but I think we have to face all of it. And one of the bad, maybe ugly things that George Mason contributed to the United States, you can tell right now, he invented the mullet. Yeah, not a great contribution to America. You thought it was Billy Ray Cyrus, didn't you? Yeah, no, long before Achy Breaky Heart was George Mason. All right, but here's what he did say for us tonight. He said, no free government nor the blessings of liberty. So that's the output. That's what we want, free government, blessings of liberty. No free government or the blessings of liberty can be preserved to any people. So nobody anywhere on the planet gets to enjoy those things unless, he said, they have a frequent recurrence to fundamental principles. Very simply, he's saying if you want the output, you got to frequently remind yourself what are the inputs that will give you freedom and liberty. You might be the best athlete on the planet. But if you're the best athlete on the planet and you're competed at the highest levels, you're going to go to spring training every year or whatever your particular sport is. You're going to go back to the basics. You're going to go back to the blocking and tackling. You're going to go back to the drills, all the things you did for baseball. You're going to do the things you did in Little League. You're going to have a frequent recurrence to the fundamental principles that will allow you to play at the highest level. Well, if we want to be a community, a society, a nation at the highest level, if we want to be a community that gets to enjoy freedom, we've got to have a frequent recurrence to remind ourselves what are the principles that produce that. That's what George Mason is trying to say. So we're going to go back in time, and I'm going to share several things with you, but quickly hold up your playbill. Did everybody get a playbill? I want to make sure everybody got one, and if you didn't, we'll bring one to you. So just raise your hand if you didn't get one, and we'll make sure you get one. Inside the playbill is a reply card. Now, that reply card is so that we can give you something free tonight. Now, we gave you the show tonight is free. How many of you ever been to a movie theater before? Anybody? Bunch of liars. Where's the rest of you? Everybody in this room's been to a movie theater is my guess. How many of you ever paid for a movie ticket? Probably $15, right? Okay, tonight was free. I promise you it's going to be better than any movie you've ever been to, and you're going to walk out of here more empowered than any movie you've been to, and we gave it to you for free. We're going to give you something else for free. We're going to give you the opportunity to become a Constitution coach for free. And if you do that tonight, we're going to give you a DVD of our full-blown Comedy and Constitution show that we filmed at the Ark Encounter over in Kentucky, outside of Cincinnati, where my mom is headed here next month to go visit the Ark. It is an amazing place. Going next week. If you haven't been, you need to go visit the Ark and the Creation Museum. Anyway, Brad and Cameron and Reagan and I and Rhett and the whole family, we went and filmed this show at the Ark Encounter. And we've got a DVD we want to give you for free tonight. That way you can share the show with other people as well. And all you got to do is hand off that reply card to somebody when you're leaving, and they'll give you a free DVD. On the reply card, you can sign up as a Constitution coach. You can do a contribution if you want, but it's just a way that you can become a part of what we're doing. So check that out. And then also check out, if you did not get one of our wonderful sponsors and friends and Constitution coaches tonight, the Sutherland family, you should have one of these inside your playbill. If you didn't get one of those, then make sure you ask for one of those and get that contact. They're the folks you want to talk to for your real estate needs. Okay, enough commercials now. Let's dive in. Let's get in that time machine. I'm not going to go all the way back to 1776 just yet. I'm going to stop off in 1994. 1994, that's still a few years ago, 28 years ago, I guess. In 1994, Ronald Reagan gave his last public speech. And it was actually at a huge dinner in Washington, D.C., celebrating his birthday, and Margaret Thatcher was the special guest. Well, Thatcher and Reagan are coming out to give their speeches, but before they come out, they had screens like this going all the way around this big ballroom at the National Hall there, and they were playing some of Reagan's greatest speeches. They played, I think, his greatest speech, which was the one he gave atop the cliffs at Pointe du Hoc, France. That's the place where our Army Rangers, Rutter's Rangers, any Aggies in the room? Earl Rutter, you should know that name, absolutely. Rutter's Rangers had taken those cliffs and begun that task of taking back an entire continent for freedom. And so he's standing there on the 40th anniversary in 1984 giving the speech, and then in 1994 they're playing the speech at this big dinner that would turn out to be his last speech. It's so good, I want to share just 2 minutes of it with you tonight.
We stand on a lonely, windswept point on the northern shore of France. The air is soft, but 40 years ago at this moment, The air was dense with smoke and the cries of men, and the air was filled with the crack of rifle fire and the roar of cannon. At dawn on the morning of the 6th of June, 1944, 225 Rangers jumped off the British landing craft and ran to the bottom of these cliffs. Their mission was one of the most difficult and daring of the invasion: to climb these sheer and desolate cliffs and take out the enemy guns. The Allies had been told that some of the mightiest of these guns were here, and they would be trained on the beaches to stop the Allied advance. The Rangers looked up and saw the enemy soldiers at the edge of the cliffs shooting down at them with machine guns and throwing grenades, and the American Rangers began to climb. They shot rope ladders over the face of these cliffs and began to pull themselves up. When one Ranger fell, another would take his place. When one rope was cut, a Ranger would grab another and begin his climb again. They climbed, shot back, and held their footing. Soon, one by one, the Rangers pulled themselves over the top, and in seizing the firm land at the top of these cliffs, they began to seize back the continent of Europe. 225 came here. After 2 days of fighting, only 90 could still bear arms. Behind me is a memorial that symbolizes the Ranger daggers that were thrust into the top of these cliffs. And before me are the men who put them there. These are the boys of Pointe du Hoc. These are the men who took the cliffs. These are the champions who helped free a continent. These are the heroes who helped end a war.
I happened to be there that night in the National Hall. We were seated at our table. We were all dressed in tuxedos and dressed up. Everybody's just enjoying the evening. And they're playing these speeches. And I'm sitting at my table. My dad's on my right. He's in his tuxedo. I'm in my tuxedo. The guy on my left was a man from right over here in Athens, Texas. His name was George McCormick. Mr. McCormick was a bomber pilot in World War II. Great American, great patriot. And I just happened to look over at Mr. McCormick about the time that Reagan was taking us back, and even on the screen, the camera had kind of panned across those tough old Army Rangers, every one of them, tears welling up in their eyes. And I look over at Mr. McCormick, and here he is at this fancy dinner, everybody dressed up. He's just crying right there at the table because he's being taken back. He's remembering his fallen brothers. He's remembering what it was like to pay that price for freedom. Well, I'm sitting there, 22 years old, never thought about the price of my freedom. I never thought about what others had done so that I could sit there at that dinner table that night. And here I was looking at this man and realizing he was willing to go around the world and die. He was willing to lay down his life for me. He was willing to die so that 2 generations later I could be there at that dinner. I could enjoy my freedom so that we could be here tonight speaking freely. And I went home that night, I said, I want to be a student of freedom. I want to know how we got it. I want to know how we preserve it. How do we protect it? And how do we pass it to the next generation? How do we make sure that they get it? That they understand what they've been given and that they're willing to stand up and fight when it's their turn, whatever that form of fighting takes on. How do we gain respect once again for this flag and for the sacrifice of those who came before us? And so after that night, man, I studied. I started. It's really what got me started doing this kind of thing. And I'd go out and I'd give speeches. And I can remember when I'd get out there and I'd give a speech and I'd talk about being proud to be an American, that people would look at me like I was corny, like I was old-fashioned. It's before 9/11, so there wasn't this renewed patriotism we got out of 9/11. And I remember giving this speech one time, and this guy comes up to me afterwards, and I'd been talking about America and talking about being proud to be an American, and he says, American? Psh, so what? I mean, big deal. What's special? What's so different? What's so special about America? Now, that's a moral relativism of value systems, basically saying that any political and economic structure will produce the same results. In fact, I fought textbooks like that 20 years ago here in Texas. They were already trying to teach socialism, communism, and capitalism are just 3 equal ways to form a society. So the cultural Marxism was already seeping into our education system literally 2 decades ago. But this kid says that to me, and I didn't know how to respond right there in person. I was pretty good at responding to hate mail when I was a legislator. I used to get a lot of hate mail. I was the God and Guns guy in the legislature. I passed the bill that stopped cities from suing gun manufacturers, defeated Andrew Cuomo 20 years ago, trying to blame gun makers for crime. I passed the bill that requires kids all over Texas now to study the Declaration and the Constitution every single year. My colleagues made fun. No, you clap. That's worth it. But I'll tell you how far we've come. My colleagues made fun of me when I passed that bill, mocked me, said you're nothing but a flag waver and yada, 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 because they didn't realize cultural Marxism was taking hold in our education system. And I was watching it happen, and I knew the only way to change that would be to teach these fundamental principles. So we've been at this a long time. I was fighting back then for vaccine choice, for you to be able to decide which vaccines to use, when to use them, instead of some medical industrial complex professional making that decision for you. I thought it just made sense that a parent should have the right to make that decision for their kids. And now today we have to fight over whether or not you get to decide that yourself. So you can imagine, just from those three issues, I got a lot of hate mail. Now, I had a form letter because I got tired of responding to all the hate mail. I just had a form letter. I sent it out, and it just said, "Dear sir or ma'am, I thought you ought to know some fool has stolen your letterhead." And they're writing asinine letters on it. They're even signing your name. I thought you'd want to know about that. You know, no, you probably shouldn't clap for that because it just hit me. That's probably why I'm no longer in the legislature. That just might explain that. Anyway, I didn't want to say that directly to this kid, so I said, wait, let me just ask you questions. That's what we teach at Patriot Academy. If somebody's got an opposite view of you, ask questions. Find out how they got to their conclusions. What were they thinking? What was the information? Where's the data? What brought them to that conclusion? So I started asking this guy questions, and then I ultimately asked him, I said, well, do you know why we call the last century the Great American Century? It's because we saved the world. Not once, not twice, 3 times from the evils of Nazism and communism and despotism. I said, if you really think all political and economic and value systems are the same, then why is it that America is the only nation in the history of mankind to hold a technological advantage in war and not use it for conquest, but instead use it to free and liberate people all over the planet? Nobody else has ever done that. Every time. Every time a nation had an advantage in war, immediately they started conquering their neighbors. What did America do? 1945, we have the bomb, no one else. We could have controlled the entire planet. After we dropped the 2 bombs and Japan finally surrendered, and by the way, we're now teaching on college campuses that America is evil for having dropped the bombs, that Truman was wrong for having dropped the bombs. We have no context anymore. It's just like, well, I don't want to go off on that tangent. If you haven't ever had a chance to talk to or interview a World War II veteran, you can go listen to the interviews that I've got on Wall Builders Live. I've interviewed the guys that were building the hospitals on the Pacific Islands, preparing for the invasion of Japan on the ground, knowing we would lose, probably have about 2 million more casualties. They would have as many as 10 to 20 million more casualties if we had to invade on the ground. So it was the right thing to do what Truman ultimately did, and the fact that he had to drop 2 of them tells you that it was the right thing to do. What's amazing to me now, though, is if you look at Hiroshima and Nagasaki today, they look like futuristic cities. They're absolutely amazing. You look at what were the greatest cities on the planet in 1945 when that happened, Detroit, Chicago, they look like an A-bomb went off just 5 months ago. Right? Why? Because the inputs changed. For Japan, Deming went over there and all these other people teaching them free enterprise, teaching them free markets, and they embraced that, and the work ethic was there. And I mean, look at how they blossomed. The inputs gave good outputs. What did we do in places like Detroit and Chicago and other big cities around America? We started inputting socialism. We started inputting the poison of cultural Marxism, and so now we see our big cities are they're decaying. I mean, they're literally cesspools of crime and decadence at this point, as moral relativism has absolutely run amok. And so anyway, we could have done a lot of different things at that point. We could have told the whole world, you're going to be our slaves. But instead, we took our money and we went and rebuilt the very nations that had attacked us. That right there tells you there is something different about being an American. The problem is we don't teach those stories anymore, and so these new generations have no idea how different the American value system is and how different our actions have been as a result. So I would suggest that even after 9/11, when we had that renewed patriotism, which was good, people were waving the flag for the first time in their lives, people were standing together, red, white, yellow, black, and brown. We weren't hyphenated Americans, we were just fellow Americans. That's good, but it didn't last very long. And the reason is because it was just renewed patriotism. What Patriot Academy is about, and what we're asking you to join us in doing, is creating a revolution of informed patriotism. See, that's a patriotism not born out of fear because we've been attacked, but a patriotism born out of an understanding of who we are and what we've done and what our value system actually is. And really the main point is that we want to make sure that as we wave that flag, we understand why that flag is worthy of being waved.
Freedom is not free. It takes a lot of sacrifice by a lot of people.
As we go over to Arlington National Cemetery, we're going to see soldiers that served in every battle of every war throughout American history.
Yeah, it was really powerful. I mean, everything's just dead silent.
I want my kids to come away knowing the amazing courage of these men who made a difference in our country.
I was definitely most excited about seeing the Tomb of the Unknown.
Kara's grandfather actually got a Purple Heart serving at Iwo Jima.
Well, I thought it'd be appropriate to have a Texan come up and talk to you about a Texan. Is that okay?
Heck yeah.
Now, it really is incredible how much Audie Murphy accomplished at such a young age.
He is the most highly decorated soldier from World War II.
Colonel Birdwell has come all this way from Texas to share something with us.
My total medical recovery time was right at about 4 years.
But he had no idea that his greatest sacrifice was yet to come.
There's nothing that will tell you how precious freedom is in paying for it in blood.
You may not know Colonel Birdwell, but he's got an amazing story. He was the closest survivor to the point of impact at the Pentagon. His whole body was covered in jet fuel and his entire body burned. There is no way he should have survived. He's got an incredible testimony. He's now a state senator here in Texas, a true constitutionalist. He understands the proper role of the government. And if you haven't ever heard him speak, and you get an opportunity, go hear Senator Birdwell speak. I'll just say this about his story because it's always been amazing to me. You know, he did nearly die. I mean, he said that I was lying there smelling my own flesh burning. I knew I was going to die. I said goodbye to Mel and to Matt, his wife and son, in my own way right there in my head. He said, then I just waited. I knew God was about to say, well done, thy good and faithful servant. But he said, God, in his sense of humor, just let me lay there and get a little more well done. It just doesn't feel right when I tell the joke. You know, it feels like only Brian should be able to tell that joke. Anyway, you should definitely read his book, hear his story, and I share that because it is true. We just don't realize how much sacrifice has been made for us to be free. And the Bible tells us to honor that, to render honor unto whom honor is due, that there's no greater love than that you lay down your life for your friend, in this case for your family, for your country. And my problem is I've always struggled with how to do that, right? I mean, how do you properly honor someone who was willing to die for you? I mean, that's tough. I mean, I taught my kids to shake their hand, go up to anybody in uniform, shake their hand, say thank you for your service. And with 4 kids growing up and traveling the world, that made it very hard to get from one end of DFW Airport to the other end of DFW Airport in time to make the flight because they'd thank every person in uniform. But anyway, I just thought, okay, that's a small thing. We always have the veterans stand and we clap for them, but it just seems shallow. It just seems like it's not enough. They were willing to die for us. How do you actually thank them? Well, Lincoln told us right there in his Gettysburg Address, only a 3-minute speech, so it's not hard to find the golden nuggets in there. He said, it's from these honored dead that we take increased devotion to the cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, and that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from the earth. Increased devotion. That's how we thank them. And I don't know, you may get offended by this, but my goal tonight is to offend everybody in this room before you leave. So if I step on your toes tonight, I apologize. My intent is to stomp on them. But whatever you've done up to this point to help restore liberty, whatever you've done up to this point to preserve freedom for the future generations, it's not enough. We got to do more. We were at a dinner the other night at the National Religious Broadcasters, and the room is packed full of people that do what I do, media and radio and all this stuff, and they're all of them out there fighting for the country, fighting to restore biblical values, all of those things. And Rick Santorum, former senator from Pennsylvania, was the speaker, and he looked out across that room and he said, I know you're all working really hard to save the country, but it's not enough. You got to do more. We're losing to the left. The left has been in the trenches for 80 years, scratching and clawing to take over this country, and they've managed to do it at this point. And they control all the major influence areas of our nation. The political sphere, entertainment, journalism, the tech industry, big business now, and frankly, too many pulpits in America. And now that they have all of that, they still only managed to keep us at about a 50-50 split across the nation, which tells me the principles are still strong, but we're not fighting yet. Or at least not enough of us are fighting yet, and those of us that are fighting are going to have to do more. So I know many of you in this room do a lot to restore liberty, and I'm asking you tonight to do more. However much you've been given to your church, I'm asking you to give more. Because if the church does not become the epicenter of the community again, It's all for naught. Government will not shrink until the church is able to meet the needs of the community. So if you hadn't been tithing 10%, start tithing 10%. If you've been tithing 10%, start giving 15%. We have to start giving of our time, our money, our energy, all of those things, lives, fortune, sacred honor, and we got to do more of it than we've ever done in our history. We are at war. We're in a culture war for the heart and soul of America right now. If we were in physical war, if World War III were to break out, as many people think may happen with all this craziness that's going on over there, if World War III broke out, or if somebody attacked Texas, well, nobody's that stupid. If somebody was... But if somebody was to attack another part of the United States, some wimpy state like California or whatever, where they would be calling us, oh, you people with guns, would you please come to California and help us? But if America was to be attacked, we would say, I'll fight. I'm going to go do whatever it takes. I'll spend a year of my life. I'll go on the front. I'll go wherever. I'll start giving more of my money. I know I'm going to lose money. I'm going to make less money this year, whatever my career is. I'm going to sacrifice time, money, all of it, to save freedom. Why are we willing to do that for physical war and not for a culture war that's about to destroy our nation? Yeah. We've got to do more. So an increased devotion, that's how we thank those who came before us. Basically what I'm saying, folks, is live the freedom they were willing to die for. Right. Live it out. Be a good citizen. You are Caesar. Jesus said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and unto God what is God's. And in America, unlike the Roman Empire at the time he said that, we the people are Caesar. So how do you do Caesar well? Right? How do we fulfill this role of Caesar? How do we become good citizens? And when I say biblical citizens, what I mean by that is that the Bible has the answer to every problem in our life. There's nothing the Bible doesn't address. Any problem in our personal lives, in our family, in our community, in our church, in our work, and yes, in our society and in our government. Everything, every answer is right there in the instruction manual. And if we'll follow the instruction manual, we get the good results. If we ignore the instruction manual, we get the bad results. I always enjoy reading through the Bible every year because, especially when I read and realize that we're not the only idiots in history. Right? When you look at what the children of Israel did, you go, okay, yeah, we've messed up a lot, but these guys, my goodness, right? But yet every time they would come back to the biblical principles, back to God's principles, the blessings would flow. And every time they rejected God's principles, the curses flowed. It's the same for us. And so it's a real simple choice. Will we go back to a biblical perspective? That's why our radio program, every day we say biblical, historical, and constitutional perspective. That's what we're after. So biblical, we want to find the answers in the Bible for how God designed this thing and how it should work. And there's a whole lot about government and society and how we should do that in the Bible. And then historical, because we can learn what works and what doesn't work. Nothing new under the sun. Solomon was right. So somewhere, someone has done whatever policy any politician is proposing. And we can look at the results of that and say, okay, good idea or bad idea based on history. So we need that historical perspective. And then constitutional perspective is, in this nation, if we're going to play by the rules, we got to know what the rule book says. So we got to know the Constitution to do this well. Part of the reason government's so outside its lane right now is because we just don't know the Constitution. So biblical, historical, and constitutional perspective, that's how we implement an increased devotion to the cause. Now let me talk about the cause for just a second. What is the cause for which they were willing to give so much? We call it American exceptionalism. I know that, again, offends some people. That's a trigger word for leftists if you say American exceptionalism. American exceptionalism. You're bragging. You think America's better than everybody else. Yeah, I mean, my mom always said if it's true, it ain't bragging. Right? Well, now, listen, I'm a Texan. I know a little something about bragging. Right? I mean, we Texans tend to think there's only two kinds of people on the planet. There are Texans, and there are those that want to be Texans. That's it. Only two categories. That's not true, so that's bragging. Sounds good. Great line, but it's not true, of course. So that is bragging. But this is not bragging. This is stating the fact that America is the exception to the rule. That's essentially what that means. And it comes from a Frenchman named de Tocqueville who came over here in the 1830s and said, the Americans are in an exceptional position to do something that no nation has ever been able to do and no nation may ever be able to do again. So it's true. We became, I like to use the word extraordinary, extraordinary, not ordinary, not normal. We're beyond the norm. And what I mean by that is the most powerful, most free, the wealthiest, the most benevolent nation in the history of the world. Every one of those categories. We're the first ones to help all over the world. We are benevolent because we're built on a Christian foundation that says that we have to do that. Does that mean we're perfect? Absolutely not. In fact, I've been studying the Founding Fathers for about 30 years. I found out something shocking about the Founding Fathers of America. Did you know the Founding Fathers of America were human? They were sinners. They did evil things, just like you and me. Sinners in need of a Savior, just like us. And yet somehow, some way, God used these flawed men to create a document that would actually change the world. To create a document where we would actually say we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And right there in those 56 words, we find the frame of America. This is the secret sauce. These are the inputs that produce the outputs of freedom and liberty. The inputs are that we believe and we hold these truths to be self-evident. So you don't get life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness unless you start with truth. Now that's not my truth or your truth or whatever you want to feel today. Those are truths that they said were self-evident based on the laws of nature and nature's God, which James Wilson, who signed both the Dec and the Constitution, and he served on the Supreme Court, he said that's just simply what Romans tells us, that God reveals himself in the Bible, in his written word, and he reveals himself in nature. That's what they meant by the laws of nature and nature's God. So we know this. We know that truth is necessary, that moral absolutes are necessary, because moral absolutes don't change. And you can't have a nation that can't agree on truth. And right now, we don't agree on truth in this country. In fact, we believe that everybody can have their own truth, and that's okay. That will destroy the country. We have to come back to the idea that there is a truth. There are moral absolutes, and our Declaration of Independence even begins that way. Reagan, of course, warned us about all of this. Everybody's heard this quote, freedom's a fragile thing. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to the children in the bloodstream. In other words, just because you're born in America doesn't mean you understand freedom. Kid born down in Austin, Texas will make you just as good a communist as one born in Beijing or Moscow. In fact, I can tell you, if they're born in Austin, they probably have a better chance of being a communist than Beijing or Moscow. With the stuff they're teaching down in Austin, it's crazy. So we know that. It doesn't happen in the bloodstream. It's got to be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. He actually goes on, it's not up on the slide, but he says in the closing of that, he says that if we don't watch it, if we're not careful, then in our sunset years, we will be telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States of America, where men were free. Well, I hope I'm not in my sunset years yet. Let me tell you what it was once like in the United States of America, where men were free. This might shock you, but there was a time in the United States of America where parents decided the medical and educational choices of their children, and parents decided when to expose their kids to sensitive topics. And can I just say thank God for Ron DeSantis and the Florida legislature right now and what they're doing. Far and away the best governor in America. Far and away the best liberty leader in America. The rest of the nation has had to start following him because he's led so well, just simply coming back to the principles of liberty. Now, he got it wrong at the beginning, too. He locked down in Florida just like our Emperor Abbott did here in Texas. And then after, I think it was only like a month or whatever it was, he said, guess what? I was wrong. When's the last time you saw a politician say, I was wrong? He said, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done it, and we won't do it again. And he's knocked it out of the park every day since. It's been absolutely phenomenal. I really do. I thank God for him and the leadership that he's providing. But what they're doing right now to fight back against Disney and this insanity, this grooming. I mean, remember what they're up against. What Disney is saying they don't want the legislature to do. They think that this is not high school kids here. Kindergarten, first, second, and third graders. They think your 7-year-old should have to sit and listen to their teacher talk about their sex life. Folks, these people are nuts. Yeah. They are crazy. They have been blinded. They are quite literally living out Romans right now, where they are right there in Romans 1, professing themselves to be wise, they've become fools. And they are educating the children. And so Ron DeSantis and the Florida legislature is 100% right to say enough is enough. I think they should have gone further with that bill, but I love the fact that they're actually now taking away Disney's special privileges. I don't believe in corporate welfare anyway. We shouldn't be giving all those special privileges to these entities in the first place, but that's a whole other topic, and I'm going long. So let me get back to where I was going with when men were free. So there was a time when parents would make those decisions, and shockingly enough, business owners in the room, there was a time in America when you decided when to open your business. Not Greg Abbott. Now, I know everybody's nervous because I'm picking on a Republican. Friends, when a Democrat acts like a tyrant, we ought to call him out. And when a Republican acts like a tyrant, we ought to call him out. Anyway, the point is, there was a time when you made those decisions. Pastor, I know this will shock you, but there was a time in America when the pastor decided when to open the doors of the church. The pastor decided whether or not to sing hymns, not Gavin Newsom. There was actually a time in America, shockingly enough, when men were free, that when you traveled on a plane, train, or automobile, you decided whether or not to put a face diaper on your face. Not some arbitrary rule, not a law, just as Brad said, but an arbitrary rule. This stuff, and I'm so thankful for this, also out of Florida. What's with Florida beating Texas in all these categories? But this judge in Florida, I'm so thankful that finally this mask mandate has been ruled unconstitutional. I'm so thankful for this. But as Brad said, should have never happened in the first place. I'm like Brad, man. I've refused to wear the mask. I go into the airport, smile at everybody, check my bag, smile as big as I can. Then I finally get to TSA, and they say, "You got a mask?" And I always say, "Yeah." And they say, "Well, you got to put it on." I say, "Why?" Because I want to hear them say it, because it's the law. And I say, wait, you sure it's a law? Well, it's a blah, blah, and they start stuttering, and then they say, oh, it's a mandate. And I say, look, didn't you grow up on Schoolhouse Rocks like I did? Don't you remember the song, I'm a Bill from Capitol Hill, right? You know, where there's a House and a Senate? You know, the elected representatives of the people? You know, the ones that make the law? And you're a law enforcement officer, sir or ma'am. I just thought you ought to know how a law is made. Well, you're not getting through here if you don't put your mask on. So I put my mask on, and I always have the same one. It says, professing fools, Romans 1:22. True story. Okay, so then I go through, I take the mask off, and then if I'm forced to get back on the plane, I put it on, and then I open up my bag of chocolate-covered pomegranates, and I eat them all the way to wherever that flight is going. But I'm sick of this thing. And I haven't even changed my slides. We started this tour a little over a week ago. I think it's our 9th show, and so I'm just going to say the same thing I said at those shows before this federal judge gave this ruling, because I do think, and the Biden administration's already appealed, let's not forget that this man put this mandate in place illegally, unconstitutionally, unscientific, all that stuff, his second day in office. And they have forced this on us for 13 months. And there is no reason to be doing it. It's insane. All the CEOs of the airlines have said, you know, our filtration system's better. You're better off on the plane than you are anywhere else. It's just ridiculous. So what I've been doing for a while, and when we started this tour, I've been asking everybody else to do, and I'm going to go ahead and ask you to do this, because I think based on the appeal, you don't know what's going to happen. It may come back. If you look at the judge's ruling, this is not saying what it should have said. It should have said the federal government has no power to do vaccine or mask mandates at all. It's nowhere in the Constitution. They can't do it. That's a state power, not a federal power. But instead, she focused on the fact that they didn't follow the federal statute. Well, friends, let me just give you a quick constitutional lesson. Congress cannot give to itself or an agency a power that is not already given in the Constitution. And the statute that she's referring to created powers that have never been given to the federal government. So she's saying they didn't follow the rules Congress created. What she should have said is they didn't follow the Constitution that did not give Congress the power to do this in the first place. But at any rate, at least she ruled that they didn't follow the rules, and therefore it's unconstitutional, yada, yada, yada. But it sets up a way for them to be able to come back and follow their rules and bring this thing back. So I'm just going to give you the way we'll finally solve this. I've been doing it for a while. On my own. I hope others will do the same. But every time you hear, if they bring it back, that ridiculous recording as you're walking through the airport, federal law says, as soon as you hear that, we're all going to be Katniss from Hunger Games, and we're just going to hold up the defiant sign. There we go. Corey's got it. We're going to do just like that. Until the recording's over, then you put your hand down. And then when you get on the plane, every time they play that stupid recording on the plane, you just, from your seat, right there. All right? My wife hates it when I do this. She's like elbowing me. Stop it! But I love it. I even try to do the whistle for Mockingjay. Anyway, I can't. Thanks, somebody has it. We got some Hunger Games fans in the room. And the best part is, you're getting to give them all 3 fingers. Right there. You say, I'm sick of this nonsense. It's all about control. It's all about, the cult COVID crackdown, and the mask is the symbol of that. and it's all about dividing us and creating tension. Think about how much tension and division and family squabbles and everything else has been created because of all this nonsense. It's torn us apart. So we've got to come back standing on liberty, and there's the key right there every time you hear federal law. Hopefully we won't have to hear that for a while. But all right, back to Ronald Reagan, because this is really at the heart of how we got here. The real pandemic, friends, is not the virus. It's not the petty tyrants. It's what politicians are going to be. If they're given the opportunity, they're going to be tyrants, okay? That's just the nature of mankind. People want power. And so that's not the problem. The problem's not even the sheep in America that followed and bowed down to this. The problem has been festering underneath for decades. It's not exciting. It's not grab the pitchforks and storm the gates. It's this simple. The real problem is biblical and civic ignorance. That is the petri dish where bad government grows. But the good news is, just like you can take immune boosters to keep from getting a virus, we can have civic immune boosters to restore the health of our nation, so that when a politician proposes a bad policy that violates the principles, the plumb line, if you will, we have something to measure against when we know what the principles of liberty are. When they propose something, we reckon, wait, that's not constitutional, or that doesn't fit, that's a bad, and we can fight back and push back. We didn't know that for the last 2 years. People didn't know what the proper role of government was. Everybody was just in fear and said, government, please save us. And instead, if we knew our principles, like John Jay said, if everyone would study the Constitution, then you would know your rights, you would perceive when your rights were violated, and you would be the better prepared to defend and assert them. So peaceably, we would be able to stop that stuff from happening if we know our rights. So we've got to solve the civic and biblical ignorance. Now, when I say ignorance, I'm not insulting. I am ignorant about a lot of things. I mean, I can't even get the string on my weed eater back together when I need to, right? I'm ignorant about that. But in 5 minutes, I can watch a YouTube video and have it solved. Well, in 5 minutes, I can figure out how to do it. 5 hours later, the weed eater will be working again, probably. But the point is, we can solve. Ignorance is curable. And the same thing is true about our civic ignorance. So Reagan warned about this 40 years ago. He said, if we forget what we did, we won't know who we are. That's why we're in this mess. We stopped telling. Why do you think Americans became snowflakes? Why do you think Americans cowered to this whole thing? Because we forgot who we are. That's not who we are. We are not snowflakes. That is not our DNA. Our DNA... Think about it. Our DNA started at the Lexington Green when we were outnumbered 11-1 by the greatest military power on the planet. We had 70 guys, a ragtag bunch, black and white, old and young, out of the same church, led by the pastor, Jonas Clark. And they line up on that Lexington Green, and up rides Major Pitcairn with 800, so 800 against 70. And as he's riding up, he says, disperse ye villains, disperse ye rebels, lay down your arms. Well, our Captain Parker, because he had been taught just war theory by his pastor, he looked at those guys and he said, don't fire unless fired upon. But if they mean to have war, let it begin here. Yeah. That's the DNA of America. That's where it began. You fast forward to the Alamo, outnumbered 40-1. The immortal 32 from Gonzales fought their way into the Alamo to defend and fight for liberty. That's the DNA we have right here in this room as Texans. You think about the DNA of those boys that stormed the beaches of Normandy and Iwo Jima, and the list goes on and on and on. You think about the DNA of the men and women that ran into burning buildings in New York to save lives on 9/11. That's who we are. The problem is that we don't tell those stories anymore. And so because we forgot what we did, we don't know who we are. He said, I'm warning of an eradication of the American memory that will result in an eradication and ultimately in an erosion of the American spirit. It was like a prophet for his day. That's exactly what happened to us. So we can bring those stories back. We can tell the stories of Sybil Ludington, 16-year-old girl that was a midnight rider in the Revolutionary War. She rode 3 times as far as Paul Revere, and unlike Paul Revere, she mustered 500 men, and she didn't get caught like he did. We ought to tell that story to every schoolgirl in America. There's so many different stories we could tell. Anyway, he said, let's start with some basics, more attention to American history, and a greater emphasis on civic ritual. That's what we're doing tonight. This is civic ritual. This show is basically reminding us about where we came from and who we are. So if we forget what we did, we won't know who we are. That's why we go back in time. That's why we study the Declaration of Independence. That's why we talk about the fact that we've got to have truths at the heart of who we are. That's why we have religion and morality in our culture. It's why you can't be, this secular idea of keep God out of the equation and we'll just love freedom. It doesn't work. Father of the Country said religion and morality are indispensable supports of political prosperity. So if you want the nation or the society to be successful, you got to have religion and morality, because you can't have liberty without morality. If there's no morality in the culture, friends, we're not going to make it to our car tonight without being raped, murdered, or stolen from. We have to have morality in the culture if we want liberty. And where do you get morality? From religion. That's why the church has to be the epicenter of the community. That's why we call it biblical citizenship. So truth, keeping God in the equation, at the center of the equation of America. Absolutely essential. And I know there's a lot of people that run around the nation saying founders didn't want any of that stuff. They were atheist, agnostics, and deists. Atheist, agnostics, and deists. Now, we could spend 3 hours tonight. We don't have time. But we could go through all the founding fathers, and you would find out that 95% of them were outspoken Christians. They lived it, they talked it, they spoke it, they wrote it. It was who they were. One historian described it this way. He said Christianity was the atmosphere they were breathing. It permeated the culture. Now, there were 10 guys out of the 250 founding fathers that were not Christians. They were not atheists. They were not agnostics, and they were not deists, but they did not believe Jesus to be the Son of God, so we can't call them Christians. However, they did believe in God, and they believed God was involved in our daily life. So that's not a deist. A deist thinks there's just something up there that made everything and then isn't involved with what we're doing. So just to make my point, since we don't have time to go through founding father after founding father, I'm going to go back to that thing I was talking about earlier, where halfway through the Constitutional Convention, people are leaving. Well, the guy that tries to save the day as everybody's leaving is the elder statesman at the Constitutional Convention. The oldest man there, Benjamin Franklin. He's 81. At the time, which I used to think 81 was old. That's getting younger and younger, I'm telling you. In fact, a few years ago, I was with Congressman Ralph Hall over in East Texas, and he had just turned 81, and we were both speaking, and he went first, and then he was introducing me, and he looks out there at me, and he goes, "Rick, you're kind of a young buck." He said, "I'm 81, and I bet you think that's old." He said, "But let me tell you, I went to Senator Strom Thurmond's 100-year birthday party." He said, Thurmond looked over at me, and he goes, "Oh, to be 80 again." So 81 is young today. Wasn't young back then. Back then, the average lifespan is 35. So if you're 81, man, you've had some extra time. So Franklin, as the elder statesman, tries to save the day. And just like we're talking about here, we got to know what we did. We got to remember what happened. We need a history lesson. We need a frequent recurrence to fundamental principles. 11 years into being a nation, they needed a frequent recurrence to fundamental principles. So Ben Franklin gives it to him. He says, "In the beginning of the contest with Great Britain, when we were sensible of danger, we had daily prayer in this room for divine protection." Now, we got out of our time machine at Independence Hall in 1787. Ben Franklin's now speaking to the rest of the guys, and he's one of only 6 guys that did both the Declaration and the Constitution. So what he's saying when he says, "In the beginning we had prayer in this room," is I was in here. He's saying I was here 11 years ago when we didn't have a chance. We're going to take on the greatest military on the planet. The only way we could win is if God was on our side. So he reminded everybody else in that room, he said, our prayers were heard, and they were graciously answered. All of us engaged in the struggle must observe frequent instances of a superintendent providence in our favor. Have we now forgotten this powerful friend? Do we imagine we no longer need his assistance? I've lived, sir, a long time, and the longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see of this truth, that God governs in the affairs of men. If a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, it is probable that an empire can rise without his aid. We've been assured in the sacred writings that except the Lord build a house, they labor in vain that build it. I firmly believe this, and I also believe without his concurring aid, we shall succeed in this political building no better than the builders of Babel. I therefore beg leave to move that henceforth prayers imploring the assistance of heaven and his blessing on our deliberation be held in this assembly, but only once, and in private, because if the ACLU finds out, they'll sue us and we'll... Oh, is that not what it says? Oh, no. In this assembly every morning before we proceed to business. That's right, no ACLU yet. What? This is the least religious founding father. He's taking the Bible out, hitting the other guys over the head with it, quotes 11 Bible verses, and says, how can you guys think we could succeed without the Father of lights illuminating our understanding? And we think today we can be free without God in the equation, but we've been pushing him out for 60 years. Warren Court started with Ingle v. Vitale in 1962, said no more private prayer, by the way, voluntary prayer, no more voluntary prayer in our public schools. Next year in Abington v. Shemp, Murray v. Collette, they said no more Bible in our schools. Then we said no prayer at football games. Then we said no Pledge of Allegiance. That would be unconstitutional because of the under God in there. Then we said no 10 Commandments in the schools. This one really gets me. Stone v. Graham was the name of the case, and the Supreme Court of the United States, in their wisdom, said, you can't put the 10 Commandments on a wall in a school, because if you do that, they said, the kids might see them. Yeah, they said if they see them, they might read them. And if they read them, they might study them. And if they study them, they might obey them. And that would violate the Establishment Clause. Don't murder. Don't deceive. Don't lie. Don't steal. I kind of think that might be a good thing to teach the next generation. right? But instead, what do we do? In our wisdom, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Our Supreme Court said, no more 10 Commandments. Let's get that out of the schools. And instead, let's teach the kids there's no creator. And there's no right and wrong. Oh, it might be wrong for me. Doesn't mean it's wrong for you. Everybody do whatever feels good. Do whatever's right in your own eyes. And then we're shocked that a student can walk into a classroom, take out a gun, and murder their classmates. Now, we love to blame the guns, right? Paducah, Pearl, Jonesboro, Littleton, Santa Fe. The first thing you hear always is, what kind of gun was it? Where'd they get the gun? Was the gun here? How many rounds in the magazine? Yeah, it's all about the gun. We love to blame the guns. Friends, I could take my 1911, set it down here. We could all stand around it, hold hands, chant, hug the trees, put on tie-dye shirts. Reagan could sing another song. We could do all of that. It ain't going to jump up and shoot anybody, right? It's a plastic or a metal. It's an inanimate object. And you know this. Guns don't kill people. Well, that's close. It's Chuck Norris kills people is the other half of that. But you were close. You were close. I always do that because Chuck's a fellow Texan, great guy. He supported me when I ran for Supreme Court here in Texas. The problem with that is when Chuck Norris has your phone, it doesn't say answer, deny. I mean, it does answer, deny. It just says answer, answer. No denying Chuck. That's how that works. Anyway, you got it right. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. It's the heart of man. You take away the guns, we'll use knives. You take away knives, we'll use rocks, jawbones. Cars are the weapon of choice right now. Drive through a crowd, you can kill as many people. I mean, Sandy Hook, when 26 people died at Sandy Hook because a madman had a gun. Same day in China, a madman takes a sword and a knife and goes into a school and kills a bunch of people. It's the heart of man. And the founders knew this. Nothing new under the sun. Jefferson said, can the liberties of a nation, in fact, you don't remember anything else I say tonight because we're talking about liberty and restoring it. Can the liberties of a nation be thought secure when we remove their only firm basis? What's the firm basis of liberty? He said, a conviction in the minds of the people that these liberties are the gift of God. Yeah. That they're not to be violated, but with his wrath, indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just and his justice cannot sleep forever. What he's saying is, if you know God gave you your freedom, you act different. You live your freedom respecting the authority of God. It's like my mentor, Zig Ziglar, said, you get God's best blessings within God's boundaries. Because his ways are not only right, they're best. They give you the best results. And so what Jefferson's saying is if you know God gave you your freedom, you're going to live that out a particular way. If you think freedom's just innate and you don't owe anybody anything, then you can do anything and everything you want. You're going to live very different, right? And so society ends up with the bad results. So that's the real problem, is the heart of man. And we've lost that in our culture. We've got to come back to the idea that God gave us his freedom. We got to live it out respecting his authority. Now, I can't finish this part talking about guns without a little bit more on guns because we're in Texas. So let me just share this because this one's really under attack right now. There's a real effort to remove the right of self-defense, which is not something the Constitution gives you. The Constitution recognizes that it's a right, is a natural law that God gave you. In other words, your right of self-defense is a law of nature. And the Second Amendment guarantees that government will not take away your right of self-defense. That's what all of the Bill of Rights is about. It doesn't give you anything. It says government will protect what God gave you. Big difference in how that works. Richard Henry Lee, he's the first one to commit treason here in America. He's the one that stood up in the Continental Congress on June 7th, 1776, and said that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states. That was treason against the mother country. John Adams seconded the motion. They debated for about a month, but finally did independence. So he's the one that started all that in the Continental Congress, and here's what he said about our right of self-defense. He said, to reserve liberty, it is essential that the whole body of the people always possess arms, whether made with a 3D printer or purchased at Cabela's, and be taught alike, especially when young, how to use them. Okay, I might have thrown that middle sentence in there. Can I just correct the man that is occupying the White House for a second? Last week in his big press conference, one of the many lies that he told was that you couldn't have a cannon in the founding era as an individual. Absolutely not true. The only ordinance we can find in the founding era against a cannon was not against the cannon or your ownership of the cannon. It just simply said, if you got your cannon, please do not fire it in the middle of the night in town. You're waking people up. Okay? As citizens, you absolutely had every right to have whatever quote-unquote weapons of war were available. That's a new phrase they've created. Friends, a knife is a weapon of war. My fist is a weapon of war. You as a citizen need to have all of those things because it's not about hunting. It's about being able to defend yourself in the moment, but also to keep a tyrannical government at bay. And that's why he's saying everybody should know how to use a firearm, especially when young. John Quincy Adams talked about the fact the only accidents he knew of from guns was whenever the person didn't know how to operate the gun. And so if we would teach our kids at a young age how to properly handle firearms, how to the right of self-defense, the moral and ethical questions about whether or not to take a life to save a life, all of those things, the biblical right of self-defense is something we should be teaching from a young age so that they understand these things. So the Second Amendment has got to be protected, folks. If we lose that, we lose all the other ones. Our father of American jurisprudence, Joseph Story, said that the Second Amendment is the palladium of all of our other liberties. In other words, it's the protector of all of our other liberties. So I'm going to give you two more quotes on the Second Amendment, and then we'll move on. St. George Tucker, you're probably not familiar with. He was a soldier in the Revolutionary War. He was known as the American Blackstone because he took Blackstone's commentaries and applied them to Virginia law and to U.S. law. And he was trained by George Wythe, the dean of the Virginia delegation. So you guys have a great night. And that's why they saved the spot at the top of the Virginia signatures, because he wasn't there on August 2nd when everybody else signed the Declaration of Independence. Anyway, here's what St. George Tucker said. The right of self-defense is the first law of nature. In other words, it's innate. Your family's attacked. I don't care what the law says, you're going to step in and try to defend your family. It's a law of nature. In most governments, it's been the study of rulers to confine this right within the narrowest limits possible. Wherever the right of the people to keep and bear, in other words, not just have a gun at home, have that gun on you everywhere you go. We should have a sheepdog in every Walmart, in every grocery store, in every restaurant, every church, everywhere you go. There should be citizens, not just armed. It's not just a good guy with a gun that stops a bad guy with a gun. It's a trained good guy with a gun that stops a bad guy with a gun. And they ought to be in every facility, everywhere in our community. And then we'd stop these nut jobs that come in with these mass murder events. Amen. That's worth clapping for, Mama. And don't use their language. It's not a mass shooting, okay? A mass shooting is what happens every time I go to the range. A mass murder event is what's taking place, and we would stop those if we had citizens trained. Anyway, he says, wherever the right of the people to keep and bear arms is prohibited under any color or pretext whatsoever, liberty, if not already annihilated, is on the brink of destruction. Because it is the palladium. It's got to be protected. James Wilson, I mentioned him. Oh, that's Patrick Henry. I forgot him. The great object, everybody goes, give me liberty, give me death. He said the great object is that every man be armed. Everyone who is able may have a gun. James Wilson, the great natural law of self-preservation cannot be repealed or superseded or suspended by any human institution. The right of the citizens to bear arms in the defense of themselves shall not be questioned. Every man's house is deemed by the law to be his castle, and the law invests him with the power and places on him the duty, not the right, the duty, the responsibility is what he's saying, of the commanding officer of his house. If anyone be robbed in it, it shall be esteemed his own default and negligence. Whew, you get robbed in your home, who's at fault? You, right? I used to be that fool, that naive person Proverbs 27:12 talks about. The wise, it says, a wise person foresees danger and takes precaution. A simpleton, a fool, walks blindly on and suffers the consequences. I had a handgun license for 15 years and didn't carry my weapon. As I said, I was the God and guns guy in the legislature talking about the Second Amendment and didn't carry my weapon because I wasn't trained. And I thought, God will take care of it. I don't have to talk about faith without works, right? I thought, oh, it won't happen in my neighborhood. That stuff happens somewhere else. Over 4 million violent crimes a year in America. It's getting worse because you got prosecutors that won't even prosecute crime anymore. And so more and more the citizens have. And what he's saying is you shouldn't expect a police officer to be stationed in your home. That's called a police state. Right? I'm a back the blue guy. My brother-in-law is a sergeant right over here in Grand Prairie, but we don't want a police officer on every corner. It's not financially feasible, and you've got to be the one that defends your family and defends your home. That's what the whole point of this is. And I had a wake-up call 10 years ago that radically changed the way I see this and changed my idea of responsibility and my responsibility to actually train on a regular basis to be prepared to defend my family. And the more you see these mass murder events happen across the country, including here in Texas, right, the more you realize how important it is for this to happen. So what you're about to watch is a cinematic recreation of the experience I had in this simulation. And first, I just want to apologize for the really bad acting. Okay, and then secondly, just explain. You're first going to see what it was like trying to respond without training, and then responding with training, and then we're going to encourage everyone in here to go through a course with us called Constitutional Defense, where you get physical training on how to defend your family during the day and Constitution training, intellectual training in the evening. Whether you do that with us or with somebody else, get that training. Here we go. We just wrapped up. I was just calling to let you know I'm on my way home.
Okay, good. Well, I'm going to have dinner ready by the time you get home. I'm really excited to hear all about it.
Yeah, I'll give you and the kids the whole rundown around dinner tonight.
All right. I'll see you in a little bit. Love you. Bye.
All righty. Love you. Bye-bye.
The reason they don't want us at your campuses is that they are afraid that if students hear us for an hour and a half, they will change their minds. And they're right. That is a very legitimate fear. The default position for those who feel is going to always be left. There's another reason.
Hey, Rick, you realize what happened, right? I mean, you froze. You quite literally froze. And that actually got all your family members killed. You realize that? All right, let's run this again.
What you just saw is a cinematic recreation of exactly what I experienced the first time I went through a constitutional defense course, learning how to defend my family. I know it was very real for me, and it made me decide I don't ever want to be in a position where I cannot defend my family. So we train all the time to make sure that not only am I ready, my wife is ready, all of my kids have trained, and we want the same for your family. I challenge you to sign up for a constitutional defense course so that you can learn the intellectual ammunition to defend the Constitution, but then you can learn the physical training you need to be able to defend your family. Join us for constitutional defense. We put 5,000 people through that course in just the last couple of years, and we're really excited about that. And believe it or not, 55% of the people that have come through are women. The other 45% were drugged there by their wives. Because all the guys say, I don't need that training, I'm just fine, I grew up on the ranch. You know, that's how kind of how I was. Anyway, we really encourage you to come, even if you never touched a gun in your life. A lot of the people that come with us have never fired a gun, and by the end of the 5 days, really have a great training down. We have one next month in New Mexico on May 22nd. If you'd like to know more about that, in your playbill, there's an advertisement for it. You can click on that link, that QR code, and get signed up. We got a few spots left, and then we'll have a lot more of those opportunities in the fall. I'm a big believer in this. I'm very, very passionate about this. I don't think it's government's job to make sure that you're ready for that. I think it's our job as citizens, and I believe there's a biblical command to do those things. If you think about the Castle Doctrine, it didn't start in England. It goes all the way back to the Old Testament, and you'll learn about that in the course. We do a lot of lectures and talks on the moral and ethical issues, the biblical questions, all of those things. So come join us. It's a really, really great time and a wonderful, awesome opportunity to be a part of it. So as I wrap up my part and we get ready to bring Brad up in just a few minutes, I want to give you some marching orders and some kind of things you can do to preserve liberty. And I've been thinking about who was in a similar position to what we're facing now. You know, when we look at the odds right now and we think, man, I'm the only one like Reagan was singing, or we're outnumbered and all those things. I think back to the week before Christmas, 1776. And that's the next place I want to get out of the time machine. And as we get out of the time machine, what we're going to do is we're going to walk up and sneak up and look over the shoulder of Thomas Paine. And I don't know if he was sitting in a cabin, you know, with candlelight, or if he was out, you know, I think he was probably out with the troops. I think he was out around a fire like you see in the picture, and there were other groups of troops huddled around. And of course, at the time, everything had been falling apart. I mean, Washington's been retreating across New Jersey and Pennsylvania. We've been losing battles. He's gone from 30,000 down to about 2,500 troops, so about a 90% desertion rate. The guys that are there with him don't even have boots, 1/3 of them. They're wrapping their feet in burlap. I mean, it's a desperate situation. Every other nation has pretty much decided U.S. doesn't have a chance at this point, and most of the country didn't think that we had a chance. So that's kind of what they were facing. When we get out of the time machine there and we think about what Thomas Paine was watching happen at that moment, that's why he penned the words we're going to look over his shoulder and read. He said, "These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this present crisis shrink from service to their country. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman." I don't believe we'll restore liberty in this country with summer soldiers and sunshine patriots. I think we're in for a tough fight. I think we're in for a long haul, a generational battle to rebuild liberty in this nation. And I think the only way it happens is with winter soldiers. We're going to have to be willing to stand up and say, I'll sacrifice more of my time, more of my money, more of my energy to make this happen. I think about even from a biblical perspective, this mamsy-pamsy, wimpy Christianity that has gotten us into this place where we think we shouldn't be out there influencing the culture. This whole idea of people that just say it's just love, 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 and they've redefined love to mean that you can't even tell people truth to save them from harm and sin and destruction in their life. And I just want to remind you, Jesus was the lamb, but he was also the lion. And it's time for us to tap into that lion part. You know, I kind of remember him fashioning the whip himself. What I'm trying to say is that we need some Jaels. We need some Deborahs. We need some King Davids. We need some Daniels. We need some Shadrachs. We need some people that will say, I will speak into the culture. I will stand up in this culture. When you think about those words that Thomas Paine said, and you think about what they were up against at that point, it's hard to believe that George Washington was willing a week later on Christmas Day to take that ragtag bunch he had left and march 9 miles. Well, first, cross an icy Delaware River in a snowstorm. It was an impossible task. Didn't lose a man crossing over. They marched 9 miles in the snow. They said you could follow the troops by the blood in the snow because of that third that didn't even have boots and wrapped their feet in burlap to do that. They end up defeating the Hessians. Actually, these were professional Hessian soldiers, so this is like the Boy Scouts taking on the Navy SEALs, all right? And we defeated them, and Washington actually captures 900 of them. Didn't lose a man, and the greatest military comeback in history happened in the next few weeks. In 2 weeks, his ranks swelled to 15,000, and the rest would become history. But the password that night was victory or death. This nation was built by people that were willing to march in burlap bags in a snowstorm and say victory or death. We sometimes forget William Barrett Travis signed that famous letter that he sent out to the world asking for help, victory or death. P.S. the Lord is on our side. That's how he signed the letter. That's how Texas began. So when we think that it's all over, it's too hard, that we're too far gone, all of that baloney, don't fall for all that. Okay, don't let people depress you because you don't like the results of what you see right now. We don't have to despair because we see bad results in America. What we have to do is say bad results come from bad policies. Bad policies come from bad politicians. And we, the people, are the ones that decide who that's going to be. And so we don't despair. What we do is we shift our focus and say, I'm going to spend a little more time, a little more money, a little more energy to help turn this thing around. So while you don't have to despair, you do, in fact, have to say, okay, I'm going to make some tough decisions about what I'm doing with my finances, about what I'm doing with my time, because right now I'm willing to sign up and say I'm willing to engage in this cultural war to try to save this nation. So you basically got to do what they did. Lives, fortunes, sacred honor. Now, they were willing to give all of it. What are you willing to do? How much are you willing to give of your time, your money, your sacred honor? What's that mean? Are you willing to stand up and speak truth in a cancel culture where you may get thrown off of social media or whatever it might be? Are we willing to say, I'm going to speak truth and let the chips fall where they may? Might lose a job, might get in, tit for tat with a family member or whatever it might be. Oh, we don't want conflict. Friends, the conflict is here. And we've just allowed ourselves to be run over and the left to just completely take over. So lives, fortunes, sacred honor, and a quick reminder, when they came forward to sign the document, and they said, when they came forward and signed it, and they said, we pledge our lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. We mutually pledge to each other, not to the country, not to the document. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. We've got to start thinking like that. We've got to start thinking about people we can really serve and come alongside and build relationships with. We've been so separated over the last 2 years and so isolated over the last 2 years. So many people that are looking for fellowship and looking for a way to be a part. And we can do that. We can create that environment. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. These are not difficult things. Number one, become an informed citizen. Become a student of freedom, just like I did after that dinner with Mr. McCormick. Start studying these things. This is where we are in terms of ignorance in the country. 74% of the country cannot even name the 3 branches of government. You thought it was just AOC. It's actually 3/4 of the country. That's a problem. How are we going to hold a government accountable? We don't even know what the branches are. So how do we do this consent of government thing well? That's basically what I'm saying you'll get trained to do. When you take one of our Constitution classes, we're going to go through that detail by detail and say, how do we do this biblically, historically, and constitutionally? Consent to the governed works if we'll stand up and give or refuse our consent. If we're silent, government assumes we've consented and takes over more and more of our lives and tells us more and more how to run things and take care of our children. So a warning came from James Garfield 100 years ago. So he was speaking to us here this night. He was speaking to us when he talks about the next centennial. He started by saying, now more than ever before, the people are responsible for the character of their Congress. If that body be ignorant, reckless, and corrupt. I usually have a picture of Nancy Pelosi float right onto the screen there, but if that body be ignorant, reckless, or corrupt, it's because the people tolerate ignorance, recklessness, and corruption. Yeah. He said if it be intelligent, brave, and pure, it's because the people demand that these high qualities represent them in the national legislature. And then he spoke to us here. If the next centennial, that's us, because this was 100 years ago, if the next centennial does not find us a great nation, it will be because the people who represent the enterprise, the culture, and the morality of the nation, us right here, because we did not aid in controlling the political forces. So that's what I'm asking you to do. Become a better Caesar. Hold your government accountable better. Become a better we the people. Be more involved. Now our classes, when I say take a Constitution class, here's the good news. Our Constitution classes are the only ones known to mankind in which you will not sleep. I mean, I appreciate some of these other groups that do Constitution, but it's kind of hard to stay awake through the whole course. I'm just saying, all right? It's true, isn't it? Ours, not that way. We take you to all these cool historical sites. We make it fun. It's interactive. Anyway, you will love it, all right? So get into one of our Constitution classes. Become a Constitution coach yourself. As I mentioned earlier, it's free. So you can do that tonight. In fact, if you do it tonight, you get one of those DVDs for free. You can actually do that just by texting. If you don't want to fill out the form, you can text coach to that number right there. Now, this is where I'm going to ask you to do me a favor, and it's all about feeding my ego so that I can show a picture to my wife and say it works. So even if you don't do it, just fake it. Take out your phone real quick. You can fake it. Just start pushing buttons. Let me think that you're texting to that number and signing up as a coach, because I need 50 new coaches tonight right here in this room. All right, come on, humor me, people. Get those phones out. Let's go. Okay, here, I'm taking y'all's picture right now to send to my wife, and act like you're punching in Coach to that number right there. It's 512-866, for the ones that are doing it, 512-866-8328. Okay, wait, let me get over here so I can gotta make sure I got, okay, at least my mom's got her phone out. You know, you can always count on mama. You always count on your mama. Okay, here we go, ready? Everybody smile as you're punching in your digits. There we go, boom! Okay, I'm gonna send that to my wife, say, see, I told you it would work. And then she's gonna look at the back end of our system and go, nobody signed up, honey. No one, not one. They all lied to you. All right, it's free, and the cool thing is when you sign up, you get this awesome coach dashboard, which gives you access to all of our Constitution classes for free. You can watch them at home by yourself. You can stream them in Zoom with other people that can join you from all over the country, or you can come together, do it in the classroom or in church, at your home, wherever. We have people that have classes with 2 people in them. We have people that have classes at churches with 500 in them. Literally have people in overflow rooms. That's happening all over the nation. We have 12,000 Constitution coaches. So there's an absolute revival and revolution of freedom happening across the country, and you can be a part of it by becoming a Constitution coach. I didn't talk about it yet. You might have seen some of the videos. We have a youth leadership program. We call it a leadership congress at the state capitol. We do this in state capitals all across the nation where we bring young people in and they live the life of a legislator, 16 to 25 years old. They're on the real House floor in the real committee rooms. They debate the big issues of the day. At the end of the week, when we've taught them the leadership skills, the biblical worldview, all of those things, they come forward and they sign the Declaration of Independence, making that commitment for the rest of their lives to give of their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. So you can help us do that. Right now, as I was explaining that, someone popped into your brain. Some young person in your life that you were thinking about, 16 to 25. Take that playbill and send them the link to the Patriot Academy so that they can apply and come join us. That'll be a way that you can help us pass the torch of freedom. Remember, we've got to do it. It doesn't happen in the bloodstream. It has to be done by us. All right, I've got one more video for you to watch, and this is actually, I think, going to give you a lot of hope. Because a lot of people are saying, oh man, it's all falling apart. Listen, we see the rubble, but we're picking up the rubble and we're rebuilding. And we're doing it right here in Texas. We're building a Patriot Academy campus in Texas so that young people can come spend 1 year with us instead of 1 week at the state capitol. For 22 years, we have been doing this incredibly well. We have graduates leading in every area of the culture, including state reps, state senators, congressmen, people that are running campaigns, people that are in the pulpit as pastors now. They're running businesses, they're musicians, but they're all biblical citizens and they're all engaged in the process. We did that having them 1 week at a time. You imagine what we can do when we have them for 1 year before they go off to these indoctrination campuses we call colleges. We're going to equip them to be able to fight back and teach truth wherever they go. So a really cool campus being built with a mock-up of Independence Hall where you can study the Constitution without having to go to Philadelphia and get shot. We're going to have a mock-up of the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol so you can see all that amazing, those paintings and statues and that history without having to go to D.C. and get arrested. And just all kinds of other cool stuff. So we hope that you'll check that out. I'm going to play this video, and I'll be right back with just a couple of more things, and then Brad Stein's going to come back and light you up. Here we go.
Have you noticed how many freedom-loving, hard-working Americans believe that America's best days are behind us? Have you felt that way? I know it's been a question discussed around our dinner table, and I'll admit that in many important ways, the American culture is crumbling. What started as just cracks in the foundation, in fact, the strongest national foundation in history, but those cracks were ignored for decades while the poison of Marxism and critical race theory were poured into the minds of the nation's youth, and now it's spilled out into the streets, and it seems like every major institution in the country, from the press to education to corporate America, even too often the pulpit, has given way to the revisionist. They bought the lies about this nation. What was once the wealthiest, most powerful, most free, most benevolent nation the world has ever known. Indeed, America was the envy of the world. Well, that has now become a place where we've allowed our school children to be taught to hate their own nation, to hate each other, and even to hate themselves. The results have been devastating, but I, for one, do not believe that is the end of the American story. You see, the principles of liberty, that's not what failed us. Our leaders failed us, and we sat on the sidelines watching it happen. But now there's this awakening that is happening all across the nation, from sea to shining sea. Patriots of every age, income, religion, race, all over the country, they are ready to do their part to restore the American Constitution, to restore the timeless principles of liberty upon which America was founded. Most patriots know something needs to be done, and they're willing to help. They just don't know what to do. Well, we here at Patriot Academy,
We know what to do, and we're doing it. More importantly, we're raising up a new generation of patriots to do it. While some look at the rubble right now and they choose to give up, we at Patriot Academy, we look at that rubble and we choose to rebuild. From Constitution coaches in every community across America, to teaching candidates to run for local office, to raising up young leaders steeped in constitutional and biblical values, Patriot Academy is equipping citizens to do their part in restoring America. The Patriot Academy campus, strategically placed in the heart of Texas, is ground zero for a new birth of freedom, so the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. Arriving at the Patriot Academy campus, you will first be greeted by a mock-up of the Lexington Green. That's where it all began on April 19, 1775. And every visitor to the campus will meet Pastor Jonas Clark, Captain John Parker, and citizen soldier Levi Preston. In those three statues, we will be reminded that no matter what walk of life we come from, each of us has a pivotal role to play in preserving and passing the torch of freedom. Constitution coaches from across the nation will be able to come to our campus and learn and get their training in an exact replica of Independence Hall, the cradle of liberty, the very place where both the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence were created. Our Center for Constitutional Defense will be housed in a mock-up of Monticello, providing both intellectual and physical training for defending the Bill of Rights with rapid response media to impact the debate on a national scale. We provide on-site housing for visitors and patriots attending our weekend trainings, as well as a rich campus life for young leaders chosen for our one-year leadership intensive. These 18 to 25-year-olds will build a strong foundation in leadership skills, constitutional grounding, and biblical worldview. Patriot Academy gives them a challenging, inspiring, and iron-sharpening iron-type environment to discover their passion, plan their purpose, and learn how to effectively execute that plan in whatever area of the culture God has called them. And we teach them how to be active biblical citizens for the rest of their lives. With the American story woven throughout every part of the campus, Patriot Academy will continue our tradition of bringing history to life through entertaining, educational, practical application. Even the Welcome Center will give visitors the chance to experience all the rich history found in the rotunda of the United States Capitol, while the mock legislative chambers will give students of all ages the opportunity to see and live the inner workings of our constitutional republic. This is the hour that our generation gets to stand guard at the watchtower of freedom. The time is now to make the investment of purpose, of time and resources necessary to preserve the torch of freedom and pass her intact to the next generation. If you know in your heart that you want to be part of the solution, part of the rebuilding, then visit patriotacademy.com today to learn more. Man, that guy just won't shut up. He just on and on and on. Anyway, okay. So listen, the campus is a great opportunity for you to be a part of this with us. The main thing I'm going to ask you to do tonight in terms of a commitment to help us do this, number one, is become a Constitution coach. Completely free, doesn't cost you anything, and put 4 people through the course in the next 12 months. That's not difficult. Anybody in this room can do that. We've been growing at 400% every year, and you would help us grow at 400% if you just put 4 people through the course, because then you are growing at 400%. We've put hundreds of thousands of people through it already. Our goal is to put 5 million people through our Constitution classes before the next presidential election. So that's what you would be part of if you become a Constitution coach and put 4 people through the class. The second thing we're going to ask you to do is sponsor a brick for the campus. It's right here. It's actually a pavestone, not a brick. There we go. No, that's coach. I want brick. Where's my brick? I was already up there. Oh, there it is. Okay. So it's a lot bigger than a brick. You get to put your family name on there. You get to put a quote on there, whatever you want, and Bible verse, whatever you would like to have on there. And it's going to go right there at the entrance to the campus underneath those 3 statues in the Lexington Green. So you would be part of, your family legacy would be part of restoring liberty in this country. So it's $100 a month for 2 years, 24 months, $2,400. You can do it up front, or you can do it over the course of that 2 years. People all over the country are doing that, and it's making it possible for us to get the land and build the campus. And that's the very next question: where in Texas is this going to be? We don't know yet. This is no kidding. For the last 7 months, every time we found the piece of property and said, this is it, it sold the next day. All right, so this is, I think, God saying to me, slow down. I've already got the land picked out. There is an individual or a family in Texas with a big old ranch, or even that perfect size. We're looking for 400 to 500 acres for this campus because we're going to have gun ranges, what you just saw there, the whole thing, housing for everybody. So basically, the Lord has said somebody's already got the land ready, and they want that to be part of your legacy. So we have spoken that every night at every Comedy and Constitution for the last week, and we already have some tremendous leads that have happened during Comedy and Constitution, some families that have the perfect property that may very well end up doing that for us. And just, I'm being transparent with you, that's $5 to $10 million that can then go straight into the buildings. This is a $50 to $60 million project we're talking about here. That's actually small in terms of big picture of the country. The left puts their money where their values are. Our problem is we don't think that way, right? We don't think about investing that way in freedom. We only think about investing, for our own and for our family and that sort of thing. We need to think about the whole system at this point. I always complain, conservatives are just so conservative. Right? We've got to start thinking sacrificially and investing. So I'm asking you to do that because I know what we're going to do with this campus. I know the impact, the game changer that it is. So consider doing that and sponsoring a brick. So 4 people through the course and sponsor a brick. That's it. Now, if the brick's too much, the least you can do is pay it forward from what you got tonight. Remember we said $15 for a movie ticket? Instead of $15, I'm going to ask you to give $17.76. Gee, I wonder how I came up with that number. And that will allow somebody else to sit here for free at one of our other Comedy and Constitution events. So if you'd like to do that, you can text donate, and it'll even do the math for you if you want to do 3 or 4 or 5 tickets for people in the future. So that's my big ask, folks. That's it. That's all I'm asking you to do. Invest in your church more, invest in freedom, invest in us, and start spending more time. If you've been going to a meeting once a month, start doing something once a week. 2 hours a night, once a week. You can do a Constitution class and get other people educated on these things. I'm going to leave you with Ronald Reagan, and then we'll get ready for a few more laughs before we close out the night, and perhaps some salient points to send you home with from the comedian himself. But Reagan, who also was a pretty darn good comedian, he had the best jokes when he would give speeches. But here's what he said that I think fits for us tonight as well, and I think it's all about attitude. We have to have the right attitude. We got to have joy. We can't be angry as we go out there. The Bible says count it all joy when you experience various trials. Our nation is experiencing some trials right now. And everybody in here probably has a pillow or a coffee mug with the Jeremiah verse, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper. Nobody has the other verses about where they were going when he made that promise. They were marching off to 70 years of captivity, right? And he still said, build your homes, plant your gardens, marry your wives, have your kids, all that good stuff. In other words, you can serve God wherever you are. So if we lose America, that doesn't mean we stop serving God or that we lose liberty completely. We got to start thinking about, I'm going to do what's right regardless of the circumstances that happen. And I can't guarantee you we're going to save America. We're going to give it everything we got. And we're at the 250 mark, 250 years. That's what most civilizations and great nations and empires, that's how long they last. America has broken the mold every step of the way. I think we can break that one. I do believe we can save the nation because I get to see groups like this all over the country that you may not even know are out there. And I get to see these young people, this remnant that God is raising up. That's where the real hope is. Anyway, Reagan said this, perhaps the greatest triumph of modern conservatism has been to stop allowing the left to put the average American on the moral defensive. The last 2 years, we let them put us on the moral defensive. By average American, I mean the good, decent, rambunctious, and creative people who raise the families, go to church, and help out with the local library. We have great work ahead of us. Once I said this is a wonderful time to be alive, and I meant that. I meant that we're lucky not to live in pale and timid times. I love that. See, even though everybody's, oh, it's so tough. We're teetering between liberty and tyranny. We don't know what's going to happen. I love that. That means that every little thing we do can be what pushes us back into the tyranny column. Into the liberty column. Woo! Well, I need more sleep, Mama. Anyway, everything you do can make a huge difference. I wouldn't want to live at a time where we could give it everything we got and it really doesn't matter, right? We don't live at pale and timid times. We live at a time where it counts, folks. We've been blessed with the opportunity to stand for something. We have good reason to be hopeful and optimistic. We've made much progress already, so let us go forth with good cheer and stout hearts, happy warriors, out to seize back a country and a world to freedom. Happy warriors. No matter what happens in the end, no matter what the results look like out there, we do our duty and we leave the results to God. Happy warriors out to seize back a country and a world to freedom. All right, we're going to have a 60-second video. It's actually Brad at one of these trainings. It's kind of fun to watch. And then Brad Stein will be back. Actually, there's two 60 seconds. The first one is my daughter shooting because I want you women to know you need to train as well. We call it being a sheepdog with a ponytail.
that shooting is just for the guys. But here at Frontside, we train the ladies to be sheepdogs too.
Talk to me about why you want to do this.
I mean, I believe in the culture of people that believe in freedom, liberty. It always came with the ability to defend yourself and defend the innocent. So obviously, you know I believe in the concept. You know I believe in the Second Amendment. I am a carry permit holder in Tennessee. I mean, if you're going to carry a gun around that you might have to shoot somebody, you better frickin' know what you're doing.
Oh, is that my shot? Perfect?
I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're military. This will change everything. It is beautiful. But it'll beat you up. First time I didn't hit anything, but I had fun because I shot a new.
You are placed into a moment where everything that you've been doing this for is put to test.
And he's gorgeous. Please give another round of hand to the man, the myth, the magic. Brad Stein's back.
What? Yes! I love seeing that because, you know, I've been in all 50 states. Most people haven't. I've been in all 50. But when I come to Texas and I watch that, everybody here just sits there like, oh, yeah, that's normal. That's what we do. So that's what makes you unique, because no state, no government, no country will ever be great if it doesn't remember its foundations, its traditions. Is what made it great, because it remembers who it was. And so you are in Texas, you remember your traditions. You remember that to be virtuous, you have to be religious. People, that's what the founders said. And you do. You go to church in Texas. And you know what I love? You not only do you go to church, when you go, you're packing. So that right there, that has got to make your altar calls a lot more effective, doesn't it? Would you like to accept Jesus as your Savior? I don't know. Yeah, I would. I would like to do that. Should have done that last week. What was I thinking? But that's the way you guys do. You realize that freedom was never free. It always costs something. Has to, because it's too precious. And that part of that was the re-remembrance of the original intent of the Constitution, as in states' rights. That's what I really miss, because that's what it's always been like in Texas. No matter what the federal government tried to shove your way for, it used to be, you guys always push back. It's forbidden to pray at a high school football game. Texans like, whatever. Dear Jesus, dear Lord Jesus, please protect the arm of the quarterback on this next play, because I got money on the game and whatnot. And of course, I'll give you your tithe if I win. You know how I work. But that was the idea. There was something involved in the culture. You participated in your faith into the culture, and it's why you were great. That's right. You're teetering. You went purple last time. That's not the kind of Texas I've come to expect. Look at the people like, we're so sorry. We didn't know. Yeah, it's up to you to change that, to fix that, to get away from the lies. That's what I was telling you about before. Lies are our problem. Lies are what's going on. Lies are what's always going to kill you. Why? Because remember what Jesus said, I am truth, and the father of lies is your enemy. That's your only enemy. It's not Democrats. It's not Republicans. It's not conservatives. It's not leftists. It's not atheists. It's not Christians. That's just how they manifest. No, truth and lies. There's your battle. Lies! The loss of remembering of words. We have new words too, magic words. You can't even use some of them. You can't say, be truthful to people anymore. I talked to you about how good you looked, and I said I'd lie about it. Remember that? Because that's what people want. They want you to lie to them instead of giving them the truth. Ever had somebody say they joined a gym? And you couldn't tell?
That's always an out there. Hey, I joined a gym. Well, you know what? Joining the gym isn't the problem. It's actually attending every now and again, because you're working out ain't working out. But you can't say that. It makes them feel bad. Well, maybe part of making somebody feel bad is to help direct them in the direction they're supposed to go. Can't tell people that they are out of shape, right? Can't tell them that, even though it's healthy. That's what people say now. That's the big thing, especially people that are, could lose a few pounds. And we all know people that did. I had to lose some weight. People get angry at that. That's a big one. Well, you probably could use it because you're not really, how dare you? Fat shame. That's what they call it now. Fat shame. We believe in body positivity. I don't have to change my lifestyle. You have to just see me as beautiful. And of course, people are intrinsically beautiful. That's the Christian ethic. All people are made in the image of God, but that doesn't mean that you can't let your temple get out of control. We believe in body positivity. Fine. I'm positive your body's out of control. There you go. Let me be honest. Let me be truthful. Let me try to help. And think about what I'm saying. People would say you can't say something that makes them realize they are unhealthy. How is that love? How childish have we become that we can't take some criticism if it's designed to help you get better? Seriously, I'm sorry. It's like not being able to laugh at yourself. You want to know you're immature? You can't laugh at yourself. So it's always speaking truth, not to be malicious, not to be mean-spirited, to help. People use that against me. See, that's the Judeo-Christian ethic, right? The whole idea that you try to be kind to people because they are all made in the image of God, right? All have intrinsic value, all have intrinsic equality to how God, allowed them to be born. But of course, things go different based on your environment. People get mad at me. People that hate my faith use its virtues against me. You Christians aren't supposed to offend people. And I'm like, well, then you know nothing of my religion. We're not allowed to maliciously offend you. Not allowed to think I'm better than you. I'm not. Not allowed to think God likes me more. He doesn't. Not allowed to think I'm superior to you. I'm not. Trust me, the only reason I'm a Christian, it's the only religion that would have me. Tried to join it. Can I join you? No bacon. I'm out. I'm out! What kind of God would deny me a BLT? That's crazy! But if the truth offends you, that's your problem. The truth is supposed to offend you. That's how you know you don't have it. Don't you understand? It's doing its job. In the Christian world, it's called conviction. In the secular world, it's called your conscience. It's supposed to turn you around and get you back on track. But we don't hear that. I'd rather you lie so I don't have to adjust my behavior, so I don't have to feel bad about myself. We do lie. We don't want people to lie, and yet we do. We don't want our kids to lie, and in order to keep them from lying, we'll lie to them. I mean, what was Christmas? Come on. Who came up with that? I mean, come on. How naive were these kids a couple hundred years ago when they came up with this idea? Son, I don't want you to lie. What will happen if I lie, Father? Well, then this guy named Santa Claus won't come here with gifts in a sled pulled by deer. And then he'll park in front of the house and give us these gifts, Father. No, he'll park on the roof with his deer that fly. And then he will give us our presents through the windows. No, he'll put them in a bag and come down the chimney. This fat guy, body positivity. This robust man will come down the chimney with his presents and hand them out. But Father, we don't have a chimney. Well, we used to until you started lying. Then he sent the Easter bunny to take it away. How do you know it was the Easter bunny? Because he left his Easter eggs. What? Yes, those eggs that bunnies are known for. And in 2022, the kids still fall for it. That lie is designed to control, even though it meant well and it was fun. Still not true. What do you do with it? What do you do with it? What do you do with it? Identify's a magic word now. It's a magic word. Whatever I identify as, I am. I'm a man, I'm a woman, boom, I'm a woman. A woman's a man, boom, they're a woman. And by the way, listen to me carefully, church. I'm not making fun of these people. They're geniuses. I give them credit. Why didn't I think of that? You mean whatever you pretend, you say you are, you are? Yes, oh my gosh. What we now call identify, we used to call playing pretend. But now it becomes real. Think of that. I couldn't have played cops and robbers when I was a kid. I would have been a felon. It became real. It becomes real. I've never heard anything like that in my entire life. And here's what I'm saying. What is the big push by CRT? Equity. Remember that difference between equity and equality. Equality means that you are given certain attributes of access to the same resources, and what you did with it would be up to you, because, you know, you either educate or not, you either work hard or you don't. But equity means everybody gets the same no matter what. Show me a system where that has ever panned out in human history. Show me one. It's unrealistic. It's not even true. Even Jesus said the poor will always be with you. So take care of them. But don't give them something they didn't earn. Bible's rough. It's real. And the founders knew that. That's why they used the Judeo-Christian ethic as the moral virtues. Oh, the founding fathers would have been transphobic. No, they wouldn't. Founders walked around wearing women's wigs all day long. They were way ahead of that curve, my friends. They saw this coming a mile away. Look at the people. He just said the founding fathers were trans. No. I was making fun of their wigs because I thought that was odd. We don't wear wigs nowadays that I'm aware of. But it's about speaking truth at all times. Speaking truth to the traditions that gave us who we are. See, that's what I'm getting at. Because we have some young kids here, some younger folks right here, right? You right? And you grew up, now you homeschooled? Oh, you are? Okay. I thought so, because it sounds like they understood everything I was saying. I love the homeschool. I love homeschool kids because they're always odd. Always. Always dressed like Mennonites. I don't know what that's all about. I guess because they hand loom their own clothing before they come. I love them because they're always odd, always weird, always quirky, and always the smartest kids in the house, for sure. Always. I just feel sorry for them because they can't just have a normal life. Everything is a teaching experience for these poor kids. Father, we've run out of gas. Oh, don't worry, son. I'm going to teach you how to make your own gas tonight. First, we're going to whittle a refinery out of wood. Then when you take the churned butter you did out back, we will refine the lard into some sort of petroleum product. This is what the homeschoolers get. Why? Because the homeschoolers know how to take care of themselves, how to watch over themselves. They're teaching their kids how to be self-sufficient like it used to be. Do you understand what happened to us? The corona was a great thing in this one regard. It exposed the cowardice of Americans. It exposed the Americans that were willing to let government, federal government, control them, rule them, watch over them. It was sick. We are lineage of these folks. In 1776, regular Americans like us sat around going, we're willing to go against the most powerful nation on earth's army, and we got freedom. Civil War, we were willing to fight our own people so that the Union would remain. During World War II, we were willing to fight fascism as Americans so that we could be free. 2001, we were willing to fight Islamic terrorists so that we could be free in our own homeland. That's who we were. And a year and a half ago, the biggest fear for Americans was running out of toilet paper. People literally hoarded toilet paper because otherwise they wouldn't know what to do. We must have toilet paper. If not, what did these people that didn't get a roll do? I guess I have to walk around with soiled breeches. I guess this is what my life is now. Because clearly, unless somebody manufactures a bunch of paper in a tube, I can't possibly imagine how to wipe my own butt. Holy smoke, are we in trouble? Got some people, he said butt in church. He said butt in church. That's right. And you know who invented butts? God. Take it up with him. Take it up with him. God almighty. If anything's going to destroy America, it's the immaturity of Christians that can't even talk about realities that God creates. Traditions matter. Notice what the left is always calling themselves, progressives. Notice what they do. They self-appoint themselves as progress. Progress is only progress once we've seen it accomplish something. They talk about something that hasn't happened yet and call it progressive. It's a reuse of words inappropriately. We are conservatives. Why? Because we want to conserve what works. Yeah. We have the wisdom of the ages to draw from. That used to be what Americans were about. That's why traditions matter. They show us what works. Doesn't mean you can't adapt. Doesn't mean we can't try to tweak things now and again. But the great foundations of who we are must not change. My goodness, they're trying to redefine that America is this evil place. Really? Is it so evil? Let me ask you a question. How do you tell if a country's great or not? I got a simple test. Do people want in or do they want out? It's not hard. But I don't hear people digging holes trying to sneak into North Korea. Anybody heard about that one? No. And then they say, oh, yes, well, who are we to think that our culture's better than others? Why? Because people left theirs to come here. Why would you leave your country if it was better than the one you're moving to? And why aren't Americans sitting there proudly saying, we're the greatest nation on earth? Because we are the most filled with immigrants. That is why we're great, because of immigrants. Absolutely. Older cultures came to this nation, brought the best of what they had, but here's the difference. They try to keep it that way. Multiculturalism means all cultures remain the same. No, a house divided falls. That is not our motto. Our motto is e pluribus unum. Out of many, yes, one. If you are going to come into my country, you're welcome from any country you want. But your job is to respect and become a citizen. That's how it works. Immigrants are supposed to integrate. It's not complicated. We're just saying you got a part of the deal too that you have to participate in. I don't believe in what's happening to kids. Now, they don't because they're homeschooled, but these other kids, they don't grow up with traditions. They grow up with trends. That's what progressivism is. Trends that they throw out there and throw away that which worked. I don't believe in trends because trends means you're following the crowd, which means you don't think for yourself and think you're doing something clever. I don't believe in trends. That's why I have no tattoos. Thank you so much. Yeah. I buck the trend. And listen, I'm not putting you down if you have a tattoo, right? I'm not saying I'm better than you have a tattoo. I'm not judging you if you have a tattoo. I just stopped drawing on myself when I was 4. But don't know why. Never looked at my skin, said, looks good, but you know what it's missing? A parrot. That's what's wrong with my flesh. People get so frustrated. Yeah, but what if there's somebody here with a tattoo? They're going to get their feeling. By the way, if you don't know what this is, it's called the snowflake dance. But wait a minute. What if there's somebody here with a tattoo? They're going to get their feelings hurt. That's my point. What has happened to America? Let me explain something to you. If you have a tattoo and you get your feelings hurt because I joke about tattoos, you don't deserve a tattoo. Why? Because tattoos used to be saved for special people, usually people on leave. And drunk, obviously. See, the young people have all gotten them, and they've ruined the concept. Nowadays, the young people wake up and go get a tattoo. Used to be you woke up and discovered you had a tattoo. Where did this come from? And why am I in a dumpster? That was the tattoo experience. You know why I don't have a tattoo? I'm going to tell you why. I have one reason only. Because I can't erase it. See, here's the thing, kids. What you like at 10, you're not going to like at 20. What you want at 20, you're not going to like at 40. Everything you think is so cool now will not be that way 10 years from now. I don't care what you think is great now, it won't be soon. You never look at a picture of yourself 10 years ago and say, man, I miss that haircut. You just don't do it. He does, but the other people does not. I couldn't help it. He had a little cheer coming down. I just want one hair to cut. That's all I want. I just want back in the game. I love it when people come to my show, Pastor, and they don't know who I am. I see their little innocent faces when they first go, oh, he's a Christian comedian. Great. Where's your puppet? And by the way, if you're in the puppet ministry, quit, because you're embarrassing the rest of us. That's all I'm saying to you. One guy in the back with a trunk. Let's get out of here. He's gone too far this time. He's out of control. She's scared to death. Her family's like, look straight ahead. He won't talk to us. What's he doing to Cynthia? Let him have her. She's not a Baptist anyways. Had a guy come up to me once and say, dude, I've got a tat. And we don't want to get rid of them because they're our memories. I had my kids tattooed on my arm. This guy had kids. And to remember that, had to tattoo him on his epidermis. I said epidermis so the homeschool kids could follow along. It makes for interesting. Do you have kids? I don't. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Right there they are. They're parrots. Here's what that guy said. I'll never forget. We don't want to erase our tats or our memories, but here's the thing. You don't know what you're talking about, because if you really want to get rid of your tat, you can always burn it off with a laser. This was a win for this guy. I'll never forget. You can always burn it off with a laser. Sure, it'll leave a scar, but at least the tattoo's gone. Now you got a scar. How you going to get that off? Guess we could follow your train of logic. Well, I guess I could cut my arm off. Sure, it'll leave a stump. At least the scar's gone. Woo! You know, actually, he'd go, woo! That's how he'd go. But look at the people. What if there's an armless guy here? He's going to get his feelings hurt. Well, at least he can't hit me. That's the good news for me. What? 2 armless jokes in a Baptist church? Why would I say that? Why would I do that? Why would I mock somebody? I thought you said you shouldn't be malicious. I'm not mocking. I'm joking about somebody with no arms. Why would you do such a thing? I'll tell you what, because they're adults. They grew up. They're doing fine. As a matter of fact, they're an inspiration to me. They've lived their life not treating and patronized, not treating them like children. Maybe they want to just participate like everybody else. Maybe they've shown that you don't necessarily need everything you think you need to have a productive life. Maybe it's time to quit feeling sorry for everybody else and let them choose how they want to be treated, with dignity or not. Yeah. I'm sick of it. Sick of people being offended for others. It's as patronizing as it gets. So let's let those people be respected. If you have no arms, raise your hand so we can point you out to the three armless jokes one night. Dude, it's just a tattoo. It's not like I'm drilling a hole in my ear and putting a big piece of metal about this big. Apparently, tattoos are the gateway drug to further body mutilation. Anybody seen this trend? You know what they call it? You know. What is it? A gauge, right. You know why they call it that? Because it gauges how bad they are at making good decisions. You've got this big old, and they take it out and let it just dangle. They let the lobe just, this is it. This is the new lobe. This is the lobe now. Like it's attractive. And they're going to have kids. What are you going to, Dad, what happened here? Well, when I was your age, yeah, I was an idiot, obviously. I had one guy say, dude, I got a tattoo from my shoulder all the way down to my wrist. Full sleeve, $5,000. I said, really? Because I got socks, underwear, and 2 sleeves, $5, Walmart. So. Might want to shop around. Just throwing that out. I'm no Fauci. But what is the point? Why are you here? The ultimate existential question. The ultimate human question. Why are you here? From a spiritual dimension, of course, it's the concept of the transcendent, the metaphysics that can only be answered by the theist. Science, which is a wonderful discipline created by Christians, I should add, in the Renaissance. The scientific method is wonderful, but it's descriptive. Who, what, when, where, how. It's wonderful at describing the natural world. But the moment it tries to include why, it's moved out of physics into metaphysics. It doesn't belong there. There is no why in secular humanism or materialism or science. You know, they got a new one with an off switch. No, I'm serious. It's a new feature. Everybody in the crowd's going, holy shit. This guy's ridiculous. I didn't mean to embarrass. Yeah, I did. Yes, I did. But we're not talking metaphysics today. That's a whole nother subject. It takes a whole lot more work. No, I'm talking about just from the very sort of micro-narrative, a little chapter in this giant novel of your life. Why are you here tonight? I think you came here because you heard that something was happening that you thought you might be interested in. Many of you might have known what it was, and thus you wanted to participate and know even more and be even more educated and more deeply understanding of what is necessary, especially to know your rights and how to defend them in the marketplace. Because you are, whether you like it or not, given a territory that you're responsible for. That's your sphere of influence, your family, your friends, your neighbors, your workplace. If you're a Christian, if you're not, you can still be an American, you can still be free, you can still care about liberty. You are welcome here. It's a Judeo-Christian ethic that said you're equally made in God's image, that we give you permission to come here and not even agree like us. But if you're a Christ follower, you have an obligation beyond anybody else on earth. You have to be a truth teller at all times. And yes, you might do it alone. I am here to tell you that the Christianity that is passed for appropriate in America is done. We can't do it like this anymore because it's not Christ following. It started with most of us with this. I'm offering you the Son of the living God, and that he will provide his death and resurrection so that you can know him for eternity. And every sin you've ever committed or going to commit, he's already seen through the blood, and you are free. And I'm going to offer you the greatest gift of eternal life with me forever. It's a great gift. It's all yours. All you have to do is accept it and receive it humbly. And here's what we say to the folks. Bow your head. Close your eyes so we don't embarrass you. If you're embarrassed to take the greatest gift that a human can ever receive in front of people that already did it, you don't have a shot out there. God doesn't need 50 people rushing the aisle. He needs one person who's serious. It's hard to be a Christian. It's a narrow gate. It is difficult. It is a discipline where we get discipled. And we made it easy. And it's not. Matter of fact, one of the proofs that you're a true Christ follower, they'll hate you. What does that have to do with this? I mean, aren't you kind of merging your faith with some sort of political element? I mean, some Christian nationalist? What are you, some kind of skinhead, some kind of white supremacy? I mean, this is the nonsense that's thrown at you simply because you're trying to remember what Americans thought about why Christianity was imperative as part of the American experience. Because we were a constitutional republic. We were self-governed. We had to be people of honor because we didn't want a policeman on every corner with a gun. You can only be honorable if you're a man of God. And you have something you bow your knee to and submit your will to. So we've offered an opportunity with Rick and I to come and do these different events. We hope you laugh. You did. Why? So you can experience joy, a very unique gift given only to humans. No other biological source has joy, only us. It's another clue that God's real. He gives us something nothing else has. We laugh at jokes. Animals don't laugh. Animals don't laugh. That's why we eat them. You frown, you're going down. That's just the way it's got to be. We're unique. If you're not a Christian and you find out the Bible is actually the rule book for how the world actually works, you'll be blown away. You'll find the balance in your life you don't have. I don't care what you're saying. Oh, I don't need that. Yeah, you do. Well, I'll worry about it when I get in front of God. No, you won't. Oh, no, you won't. See, everybody here is terminally ill, and everybody here lives forever. But where? So again, what does that have to do with this? You're responsible for what you do while you're on this three-dimensional plane. You're going to be eternity for eternity. You're on this plane this long. This is the only time in your existence, and you live forever. This is the only time in your existence you can give something to God He doesn't have. Your will. That's it. Once you get to heaven, there's no more faith. You're there. I'm done. And when God charged the Israelites to defend Jerusalem, to defend Israel, to defend their lives, when God charged that justice must be served, real justice that is God-breathed, not coming from a cancerous, cultural, Marxist perspective. When you have a chance, not like Christians in Iran, or Myanmar, or India, or Pakistan, or Turkey, or North Korea, or China, or Egypt, or Libya, or Syria, or Uganda, or Nigeria, where they're being butchered. And you live in a culture that was created by your own people. You're going to watch it die in front of you? You're going to let it die in front of your face? Hey, folks, we're at war. Just like the Revolutionary War, just like the Civil War. Hell is here. We're still here. We're still alive. We still have a semblance of freedom. We still have a shot at saying no to mandates and totalitarian rule. We still have a shot to be free agents the way God designed us. God designed us that way. God Almighty even says, you don't have to believe in me. That's how much he values freedom. But you're going to force people to do something when God doesn't do it? You have a chance tonight to remember. What did I do when there was a chance? Did I buy a brick? I mean, what could be easier than that? So we can build this campus? Is that the only way we're going to be free? No, but it's a big one. It's more than what you've done. We're asking you to participate, to partner, to fight. So your kids can go, your grandkids can go. Be a volunteer. Be a Constitution coach. Understand your rights so you can tell others. It's not complicated. It's discipline. Disciple. Rick's got all kinds of great things over here. Books. He's got the Constitution course, how to be a biblical citizen that you can learn in this church. I think this church even did it once. He's got the how to be a Constitution coach. You just facilitate it. You don't have to be a genius, but you'll grow and learn like everybody else. He's got all kinds of things that will give you the education and the insight and the understanding of your faith and your people and your heritage so you can fight a militia of the mind. It's all sitting here waiting for you. You're going to leave and say, oh, that was inspirational, or are you going to leave new person, a warrior? I have stuff over there too. It's comedy. Lifts up God and country, tears down political correctness, because I want to watch political correctness die in my lifetime. But first, I want to watch it suffer. But, and here's the key. If things are tight with you financially right now, don't buy my stuff. I'm fine. God's with me. I'll eat. But buy stuff from Rick. You've got to prepare yourself for the battle we're in. Just like reading the Bible, you need to understand your country, your heritage, your traditions. If things are tight, invest in something that will be there when you need it. But if you're loaded, buy all the Rick stuff and then buy every stinking thing I have over there. Because my kids wait for me when I come home like I'm in a Dickens novel. Father, did you go to Texas? Yes, I did. Did they buy the DVDs? Well, no, they bought all of Rick's stuff. It's all right, I'll eat gruel again, Father. Why? Because I told my kids I was willing to die for what this is. I don't know if I'll make it, but I'm going to be willing to die for something, and you better decide you have something ready to die for in this nation as a person, as a man, as a woman, as a Christian, as an American, because no matter what happens, no matter how difficult it is, this country has stood fast trying to give, trying to love, trying to heal, trying to get better, trying to help others, trying to be a torch of freedom to everybody else. It's time for Americans to quit talking about it, but start doing things. It's time for Americans to quit sitting on their butts, get up and fight like men. It's time to unapologetically say, we're not perfect, but this still is the greatest nation the world has ever known. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you for caring about this nation. Remember, the truth is marching on. Good night.
Bring your time.